I got that out. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fine episode of the Artisans of Steel podcast. I have a very special guest that I'm very excited to get to talking with and getting to know better. I have Jayden Simisky on the podcast today, and yeah, he's a super talented guy. But before we get to him, I need to talk about our super sponsors for the Patreon. If you want to join the Patreon and be part of these live conversations and live recordings, asking questions to these super talented makers that we're talking to, join the Patreon. You can go to patreon.com and look up Marco Malmasi or Malmasi Fire Arts, or you can go to my Instagram, where in my links, my link tree has the Patreon link, and you can just jump in there. And if you join at the illuminated individual level or higher, yeah, you will be part of these live recordings. You will also have access to artwork and all this other kind of stuff that I have available on my Patreon, as well as the Discord channel, which is kind of like our own private forum where members of the Patreon are hanging out and chatting, helping each other, showing each other the work, and kind of just talking knives. And so with that, our first super sponsor this month is Dan Hubbs. He's 66 Mountain Knives on Instagram and Facebook at 66 Mountain Knives. He actually has a blade he just finished up. It's a beautiful feather pattern. And I think he calls it Talon. And it's got a wild sheath that has a snapping turtle, like a little, what is it called? Like right in the middle, like a over or underlayment of snapping turtle leather on the sheath. It's really beautiful. It's a great piece. Dan is a great guy. Go give him a follow. He's awesome, and I'm very thankful to know him and appreciate his support on this podcast. All right, next up we have Lawrence Lake. He is Maritime Knife Supply. He's on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Maritime Knife Supply. You can also go to maritimenifesupply.com, where he has all kinds of things that you need for making knives, from consumables to handle materials and hardware to tools. He's got it all. And if he doesn't have it, you can reach out to him. And if there's something that you're wanting, you're probably not the only one. And so he can figure out a resource and he'll start carrying that thing. He also sells the new clay that we were talking about last episode with Trey Hill. New clay is a special kind of clay that Trey is using for his hamon. It's made by the maker's name is Daniel. I can't remember his last name. I feel terrible. But anyways, the new clay system is super good. They also make a steel coating that helps to reduce the steel's exposure to oxygen as you're heat treating it, especially if you're working out of a kiln or a forge, honestly. So go to maritimenifesupply.com and check it out and get some. Next up, we have Gabe Fletcher. He is Anchorage Brewing on Instagram. Anchorage Brewing is definitely one of the best beers I've ever had in my entire life. But his maker page is Anchorage Forge. And Gabe has some really cool, he's making another Planet Eater Mosaic Damascus. So he did a collaboration with Josh Prince last month or maybe the month before. Anyways, a really excellent piece. Where that involves some plug work with all this really cool arrangement of mosaic Damascus patterns, and it looks awesome. And I'm excited to see this project come together. So make sure you go give him a follow on Instagram at his maker page. It's at Anchorage Forge. Next is Josh Weston. Josh, who is on Instagram at Josh A. Weston. He's also the owner operator of Dragon Forge Experience. That's Dragon Forge EXP. On Instagram. He has made these beautiful dragon forges that he has kind of, I think they're technically semi-permanent, but they're basically fixtures at these different Renaissance festivals around the country. One down in Phoenix, over in Austin, and then another one down in South Carolina. And then he's got actually another project coming up that I think is going to be pirate themed, but it's these really cool things where people at these festivals get to come and work with smiths. And I'm talking to Josh about getting out in November, I think, down to Texas to go do some work at his Dragon Forge Experience and do some forging for a couple weekends, as well as just hanging out and working with him during the week. So go give him a follow. Again, at Josh A. Weston, as well as at Dragonforge EXP. Finally, we have Russell Tinsley's Ouzel Finch Beers. His maker page is Can't Make Knives, and his Instagram for the beer company is at Ouzel Finch Beers. Ouzel Finch Beers, they make some of the most outlandish and kind of like wild and crazy flavored beers that I've ever experienced. But they're all awesomely delicious. They have these boozy sodas actually that they've been making lately that are kind of harken back to honestly like my childhood of like grape sodas and crush and all these different kind of fruity citrusy beers that or not beers sodas that I used to drink as a kid. I wasn't drinking beers as a kid. Anyways, but these are the grown-up versions. Boozy sodas are super dope. And go to your local beer market if they're not already carrying the Ouzel Finch, that's OOZLE Finch beers. Get them to buy some if they can get it over from, because Ouzel Finch is based out of Virginia. So see if they can get it shipped in. They're not going to have a problem selling it, and they're super tasty. Like there's a win-win for everybody. So go check out Russell Tinsley at Can't Make Knives and at Ouzel Finch Beers. Okay, my guest today is Jayden Simisky, and I feel bad because I've always thrown an N also in that name, but there is not an N. It's Simisky. So Jayden, let's see. I've been following Jayden's work for a few years now. Well, I feel like it's actually probably been maybe 4 or 5 years, but I always say like a couple of years. But time is a weird thing for me right now. Anyways, I've been following his work. He's extremely talented. His execution in making these incredibly complex patterns, the way he is building out the knives to have these really interesting and ornate kind of and unusual assemblies where he's using tenon work. He's got all these funky pins. He's got all these great Damascus features. He's got one blade, and he'll have to describe it better. And actually, there's probably a photograph of it. But the blade's kind of floating, and it's attached to the handle by I don't even know what he would call it, and I bet he's a better person to answer that. But anyways, his work is freaking awesome, and I'm really excited to have him in here. I'm gonna pull him in right now. And Jayden, I really appreciate you being here because your work's awesome, and I'm really interested in get to know your story, your background, and how you got into knife making, and I think a lot of people would get a lot of value out of it. But how are you, man?
Good, man. Thank you very much for having me on and all the kind things you just said. And no sweat on putting the N in my last name because every single freaking person does it.
Well, and for the longest time, I never saw your name written. So I heard it actually, I think somebody else was saying Siminski. And I was
Yep.
like, okay. But then
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think that it's a common name somewhere else.
Yeah,
In my fit, I think it's Lithuanian. I don't actually know, to be
yeah,
honest. But yeah, no worries. It happens.
Siminski. Am I saying it right
But
when I say him Simisky?
yeah, no, you nailed it, man. You're like
Okay.
one of 3 people on the planet that says it correctly. I just respond to anything at this point.
Well, I have a super unusual name, so that's why it's like it's really important to
True.
me that I get people's names right because I have had my name butchered and fucked up my entire life. So what?
Well, from one,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say from one to another, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So where are you hailing from right now? Where are you? You
So
live down in like Wyoming or
no, I'm in
go ahead.
Colorado.
Colorado.
Yeah. So I live in Boulder, Colorado, which is also where I was born. I think it's
Oh,
the
excellent.
greatest town in the nation. Um, but I'm sure people would argue with me on that. But yeah, I live in Boulder, Colorado. I was born here, raised here, lived my whole life here, went to college here.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love this town. I've done a ton of traveling, but this is the place for me for now. And I'm trying to think, yeah, that's where I'm from.
Boulder is pretty rad. I've been there only one time to visit a friend. It was a beautiful. It's the setting is pretty incredible because is it the Flatirons that are off to like
Yeah,
one side,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then you're on this like high desert plain, and it's just flat around. It's stunning. I would be happily come out there and visit and hang out and do some work with you.
Come hang out, man.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I'd love
I
to
won't
have
be
you.
slacklining anytime soon though. I'm not very good at that game.
That's what you say, but come out here. I'm putting you
I mean,
on
I'll
one.
try. I would try. Um,
Cool.
yeah. What was your? Let's see. So you've lived in Boulder your whole. Oh yeah. So the reason I'd been to Boulder is because I moved to Denver chasing a girl. That didn't work
Nice.
out
That
very
happens.
quickly. um, so anybody else that's happened to, trust me, I feel your pain. Um, but in the time, so once I was already there, I did have other friends that lived around Colorado. So I had one friend or a couple friends that lived in Denver. So I just like cruised and hung out there, got work, and I was visiting people. But yeah, going up to Boulder was really cool. It was beautiful. We went to some cafe for breakfast. It was like some moose something. I don't know what it was, moose
Hell
themed
yeah.
thing. But it was they were
Might have
just
been the
like super
Buff.
well. Oh yeah, that was it.
Hell yeah.
I said moose, the buffaloes, right?
It's
Because CU,
buffalo moose. It's close enough. But
big and it's got horns.
yeah, and you don't want to find an angry one in the woods.
Dude,
But
we have a animal preserve here,
oh
and
yeah.
they have bison on the
Oh no way.
preserve, and you can like for a while they used to have a tram where they would like take a guided tram, but the trams were down, and so then you could just like drive your own car, and we had a bison like 5 feet away from the fucking car. It was crazy because it
Was it
was
angry at you or was it just
no,
hanging
it was
out?
super chill, thankfully. But it
Cool.
was actually sorry, I was driving my Silverado 1500, and it's like half. That's the size of half of my truck, and I was like, "Oh my
They're big.
god,
Yeah, those
it's
things are
so
scary up
huge."
close. Well, I'm just like, can you imagine, a couple hundred years ago seeing a herd of like 20,000 of those things coming
Oh
at
my
you
god,
across the plains? It'd be
yeah.
crazy.
I heard that some of the really old herds were like the size of like half or a quarter of the state of Washington.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, they were
crazy,
moving around as one
so
crazy
massive.
blob for
Well,
real. But yeah,
yeah,
no, I'm from Boulder and love this place, the access to nature. It's a unique little weird town. I mean, you've been here, like you said, we got the Flatiron. Like east of us is Kansas, west of us is the Rockies. We're right
yeah,
on the cusp of it,
yeah,
and I love it here.
that's killer. Do you think? I mean, I would be curious to hear a bit about like kind of what childhood was like growing up there, and I wonder if that's played a role in kind of like your approach to, not just knife making, but creative endeavors in general, and just like the way you see or think about things.
That's a good question, and it's kind of an interesting answer because honestly, I hated this place growing up. I
Oh,
didn't like the outdoors. I didn't like going outside. I wanted to
video
sit
game all day.
inside and yeah, that's exactly what it was. I wanted to sit inside and play video games and watch TV,
Yeah,
and I didn't want shit to do with anything else.
yeah,
Um, and so it was definitely a bit of a 180 flip around like 16 years old or so when I started really getting into the outdoors. But yeah,
okay,
growing up here, I mean, I grew up kind of north of Boulder in an unincorporated area, so it's a little bit more rural.
okay,
We were right next to the Boulder Reservoir, if any of people listening have been around there. But yeah, I mean, we had a couple acres of land, and our neighbors were mostly farmers and fairly spread apart, and there weren't really any kids in the neighborhood, and I was never really
right,
social, so I kind of just hung out and did my own thing. I was always building stuff. My
right.
parents, and all credit to them for me ending up where I'm at now, because 8
Oh
year
wow,
old me was like building flamethrowers in the garage and stuff, and they were like, "Oh
oh
yeah,
jeez,
great job."
wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
so they were very, very supportive, and I didn't realize it then, but I'm very thankful for it now. But yeah, no, I was never creative. I was never an artist. I was always just this angry little kid that didn't want to hang out with anybody.
Oh,
And so like yeah, I don't have the like deep roots that affect my work from that, but
okay,
once I hit that kind of 15, 16 years old and started going out on my own into the world and like experiencing this place that I'm from and starting to realize just how lucky I am to live here and to be from
hmm,
here, then it really switched my perspective. And then I found art and I found knife making and I
yeah.
found this creativity in myself that I just had no idea that I was even
Oh,
capable of.
yeah,
And that then it started, now the mountains and the nature in the place I live really affects my work in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't have that like deep roots that some people have where they come from.
For sure. Oh, interesting. Yeah, because my upbringing, I was always I don't I think I was just being a kid, but I was always just like building stuff and drawing all kinds of things and stuff like that. I don't know if I was
Yeah,
particularly talented at any of them, but yeah, it's cool that your parents encourage you to be creative in the way that you were like they were willing to let you build a flamethrower when you were a
100%.
little kid and stuff like that. That's
Dude,
wild.
I always say it was either arsonist or blacksmith, and they supported the more constructive path.
That's hilarious. What did you go to school for when you went to college? Or I guess also,
So I
what were some of your favorite subjects? Like, especially, I guess, once you got into high school and
100%.
stuff like that.
I when I was like in high school and middle school, even to some degree, I've always been interested in the sciences. Like I've always been a
Okay.
very logic brained type of person. I'm good with numbers. I'm good with um, kind of like brute forcing my way through problems and just trying to
Mm,
find a solution that way rather than the more creative route.
yeah.
But yeah, numbers, science, math. I love sciences. Like my first year at CU, I studied physics,
Oh,
but turns out I'm not as smart as I thought I was, and so I switched to environment. I switched to
you don't like
environmental
sitting and
science.
crunching numbers and parabolas and all that
Fuck no.
shit?
I couldn't do it. I walked in on the first day of freshman class at CU
Yeah.
for physics. I walked into my math class, sat down, and 25 minutes in, I was like, I don't think this is for me. So I don't think I can do this, man. I don't know if I can
Theoretical
survive four
calculus.
years of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But no, so I switched out of physics and into environmental science, which I really
Okay.
dig because, like I said, after about age 16, I had a couple of experiences. One of them in particular was in the desert in Utah with some high school friends. We all took
Mm,
like it was my first ever road trip, and we all went out to the desert and just watching this sunset over this beautiful scene on like an 800-foot cliff, and
yeah.
just like damn, the world is beautiful, And so I started really getting into nature after that,
Yeah.
and that kind of influenced me studying environmental science. I minored in geology, and then environmental science is my main thing.
Mm.
And I kind of have a subset within that all of geothermal energy is like the main thing that I
Oh, wow.
studied. So I lived in Iceland for 2.5 months this last previous summer, doing a study program there abroad,
Oh,
which was really
cool.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I got to tour all these different geothermal facilities, and I got to talk to the industry leaders and politicians in Iceland, and kind of learn about how their whole renewable energy system works. And I just love that shit. I think it's super fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, kind of just studied the things that I found interesting to me, and it's rocks, nature, and energy.
Yeah.
Um, and I was really fortunate to get to do that. I was able to go to college, and I already had blacksmithing and knife making kind of as the thing that I wanted to do going into that. So I got the unique opportunity to just like study what I thought was cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting how, like, you had kind of like that freedom kind of with already doing the knife making and probably making some money doing that you didn't feel like, oh, I
Totally.
gotta do something that's gonna get me a job.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Wow.
was so thankful for that, and like I said, man, all power to my parents. Like they've really been there for me my entire life,
For sure.
in a number of ways. But yeah, no, 100%, like going into college knowing that this is what I wanted to do, and already having clientele built up and
Mhm.
contacts with purveyors, and knowing people, like you and the people I've learned from, like Salem and Dave and Steve and Jason and all these guys. Like
Yeah.
I felt good going into college being like, I think I could work this out.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and so it was kind of unique to get to just like learn what I was interested in,
For sure.
without having to think about a job so much. And it's nice to have a fallback too, if it ever comes down to it.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like something you're actually genuinely interested, so I'm sure you'll continue to, like, follow what's going on within those environmental sciences and renewable energy and
100%.
stuff like that, and continue
Yeah.
to, yeah, keep up with it rather than just, like,
Did you?
disappear into knife making and
Yeah.
and
Oh,
and then
got it.
try to jump into it 10, 15 years down the road and be like, "Alright, where are we at, guys?"
I'm constantly battling the urge to just disappear into the hills and never be seen again. Spend all my days in the shop.
Yeah. Sound like
Did
you had a
you?
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you because I actually don't know a whole lot about you other than, you know, the couple of conversations we've had gearing
Sure.
up for this and then hanging out at Dave's show last September.
Right.
Um, did you are you from Washington?
I was born in California, at
Oh,
Stanford
okay.
University Hospital,
No
and
way.
but we only lived there for a little bit before, I think, moving up to Washington maybe, and then over to Western Samoa where my biological father was. He wasn't really my dad
Cool.
because my
Yeah, yeah.
mom ended up leaving him because he was a piece of shit, and, uh,
Damn.
and then we lived in Washington. Yeah, I've lived in Washington, grown up in Washington most my life. I've lived here all but maybe, yeah, like 2 years of my life.
Tight. So it's like on paper
Sorry.
not where you're from, but
Yeah,
you're home.
right, yeah, all but 5 years of my life, and I'll be
Oh
41
yeah.
this year, and so
Hell yeah.
I think it's fair to say that it's my home.
Yeah. I think it counts by now.
Yeah,
Did you go to school out there?
I didn't go to school at all.
Hell
I
yeah.
was I was n I am not a good s I love learning. I am not good
Yeah.
at doing the busy work, and a
Yeah.
lot and the work that, a lot of classes require for getting the grades. I'm great at taking tests, I'm great at learning stuff, but all the kinda BS in between, I was not very good at. And I know that a
Dude,
lot of, especially when you get into, like, more professional things, like going through those exercises are super important. And honestly, if I were to go back to school for whatever reason, I would be such a far better student than I ever was. I would be a way better student now than I ever was, at least. And actually, I've never thought about it from the perspective that I already have, like, I'm successful in what I'm doing with knife making. And the idea potentially of like doing some schooling or maybe even like online schooling for something without the stress of like, is this going to help me get a job?
Yeah, it's not your future, it's just because you find it interesting.
Yeah, audit some classes. But yeah, I actually, when I tested, so before you go into community college from high school, um, and you must have done this too. It's like a placement test to see like where you're at mathematically and reading and stuff like that. My reading comprehension, I know how to read, but I think I'm undiagnosed dyslexic. And so um I took the test and I qualified for English as a second language. My fucking reading comprehension was so terrible. And so I was like,
No.
well, I guess I'm not taking any English classes
Uh,
anytime soon. But it was after high school that I discovered reading for pleasure, and like just for entertainment. And I was like, whoa, this is so easy. I was like, oh, I just had to find something that I enjoyed reading instead of
yeah,
a lot of the crap that you're fed, um, at least through classes in high school. And in my home, reading wasn't really a thing. I think my mom didn't feel like she was a strong reader, and so she hardly ever read. And so
yeah.
I never really saw it modeled reading for entertainment, and so I just never did it.
Dude, I
And
think you
so
hit the nail on the head though with like
yeah,
if you enjoy it, it's crazy how profound it can be or
yeah,
how enjoy you know, and entertaining it can be. Like I'm very, very much so even diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, and
yep.
so I've always been just a terrible student. I've been like a straight C student my entire life, but it's because I'll get 100% on the test, but I just won't do the homework because I
Yeah.
just cannot stand the oh, what up, Mike?
What's up,
I
Mike?
cannot stand the tests or the homework. Sorry, the busy work. You know, the meaningless. Just like why am I
Yeah.
spending my time doing this? Um, so yeah, definitely can empathize with that. But the reason I went, yeah, when you said you didn't go to school is because I tried to drop out of college so many times, and my
Oh,
parents kept being like, no, like you got to finish it. And I was like, but
you can see
why? I
them
could
just
just be
kinda
making
like you're trying to
knives.
escape and they're like push they're hurting you back. No, no, go
Yeah.
ahead. You can do it.
And now that I'm at the end, I'm glad that they did. But yeah, it was definitely I was close.
I got you. So are you still in college finishing up or did
No,
you
I'm
graduate?
done. I graduated in December, so I'm
Oh
only a few
shit.
months out. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Big deal. It feels good?
Yeah, can't believe I made it. You know, it does feel good, but more than anything, it just feels normal. Like having a business and having a stream of income and something that I was interested in and stoked on
Mhm.
throughout all of college, and that I really wanted to be spending my time on, but I couldn't because of school.
Yeah.
was taxing, mentally mostly. And
Sure.
now that I'm like able to do the thing that I wanted to be doing the whole time, I'm just like, oh, weight off my shoulders.
For sure.
I'm doing what
Jesus
I wanted
Christ.
to be doing now.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, like, and I can appreciate where your parents are coming from because, like, the idea of me going to school, going back to school right now, sounds like a lot. Because not only do I have the business, but I got a family, I got a kid, and I got all that other stuff going on. I can see how it's way harder to go back, and
Yeah.
why there are so many people that like after their kids leave for school, that's when they like go
And they
back and get a
go,
second education or
yeah.
something like that. And so, yeah. I gotta ask you, what is your ethnic heritage? You have a very unique look, and I'm always been curious.
Sicilian. My family
Sici-
is from Sicily and Lithuania.
Okay, yeah,
So yeah, my dad's side is that was funny because you're Samoan, right?
yeah, I'm half Samoan.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, but yeah, no, I mean I'm pretty much just European white, but no, my mom's
Sicilian is different
family.
though.
Yeah, no, we got a little bit of something going on. My mom's family, her grandmother. So my great grandmother moved here from Sicily.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you what date, but she moved here. She moved to California, Southern California, started up an Italian
Mhm.
restaurant. And then my mom and her mom grew up working at that restaurant until the day she
Okay.
died. And
Oh wow.
so, yeah, I've got the Italian heritage. And then my dad's family, same deal. Great grandfather moved here from Lithuania, probably in the 20s, maybe. Couldn't tell
Okay.
you
Oh
exactly
wow.
when. Yeah.
I cannot think of where Lithuania is on a map.
It's like Eastern Europe. It's I'd honestly have to
Oh,
pull it
like
up. I
near like the Czech Republic and stuff, or
Yeah, yeah, it's here, let
over
me pull
there,
up a map real quick because 'cause I'm actually curious too. I'm really
Eastern
geographically
Bloc.
challenged. There's
I
there's
used to
2
be
things
really
I'm not
great
g
at it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Th There's 2 things I'm really bad at, and it's knowing where things are on maps and being able to say the months in order.
Wow. Yeah, that's a new one for
I
me.
just
I've never
I
heard of
never got that one.
I love it. Yeah, I have
Okay,
this weird.
so
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I actually cannot find Lithuania.
Okay.
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I had this weird, ability to memorize things. Like, before cell phones, it was just dial phone, right? And I
Yeah,
had I think at that time, I had and I think part of this is I've learned that, this is a quality that, people who are, um, dyslexic usually are kinda good with numbers, and, whether it's mathematic or otherwise, and I
no, I've
had,
heard
like,
that, yeah.
4 different credit card numbers memorized. I had over 100 telephone numbers memorized,
Jesus.
addresses, all the Social Security numbers of my family members and me. Um,
That's
it
crazy.
was fucking weird. But so the way that comes back to geography is in high school, I had a teacher who my history teacher was always doing the geography tests. And I loved it because I was really good at I could just remember where everything was. And I just had to look at the map. I used to
Yeah.
there's this game called oh shit, I can't remember what it's called. But
Is it Guess Who?
no, no, no. There's this
I
game
was
where
always bad at that.
they always oh god, what's that fucking game called? But anyways, there's this game where you pull out a card. It's like a box of cards. You pull one out. They provide a situation, and then you have to figure out what the solution or what the answer is to the thing.
Oh, that's
I was
cool.
I was slowly going through the cards and reading them, tr trying to figure them out, but if I couldn't figure it out, just read the answer. I went through half of that box, it's probably like 400 cards. I had close to 200 of the cards memorized. You could pull any of them out, and I would know the answer to it.
We
It was
we
weird,
had a
but
game like that that was
I don't
called
have that anymore.
it was like the worst case scenario survival game was the
Oh,
name of the
jeez.
one we had that was like that. But it was the same deal. You pull up a card and it'd give you this scenario and it'd be like, 4 options. What do you do? And one
Yeah.
of them was the right answer. It's kind of fun.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, so I'm trying to think
Do
how I use
you
it now these days.
do you have like a photographic memory or is it just you're good at memorizing numbers and stuff? Like if you see an image and close your eyes, do you think you could draw it out?
I don't yeah, I don't think I have a photographic memory. but I do think that I could do that. Like I
Yeah,
could look at a scene and then draw it.
that's
Um,
crazy.
I was always I did a lot of pencil and pen drawing when I was growing up, and I always referred to myself as like an inefficient copy machine because I could copy I could copy drawings out of comic books. I could draw scenes like if I was sitting and I could looking into like a coffee shop, I could draw the coffee shop. But it's like I don't know.
That's pretty
I
cool.
didn't feel like it was anything special. I could never come
Yeah,
up with my own stuff. And actually knife making has been like one of the first outlets where I've had the ability to use my own creativity to create something a lot of new stuff and new approaches and
yeah.
stuff. And
Dude, I had the same experience with knife making. Like I was saying, that's what helped me realize that I was, capable of being an artist and being creative. Same thing, knife making was the first thing I ever was a part of that I like got to exercise my own will and come up with things.
mm, yeah. Okay, so then let's step back. How did you get into knife making? Were you in high school or college when you
I
started
was in
messing
middle
with it?
school.
Middle school. Holy shit. You were way back.
Yeah, I was so I the first knife I made, I was 10 years old, maybe 11 years old.
Okay.
And like I said, all power to my parents. They were very supportive. I didn't realize that I was a weird kid until later, but I was a weird kid. And so because of growing up in kind of a more rural area and just not really, I never really got along well with kids that were my age. I kind of was just always a little misunderstood and interested in weird things that they didn't get and felt out of place and all that. So I
Hmm,
spent a lot of time just building stuff and just messing
okay.
around. I was taking apart radios and
Yeah,
building
that's basically
trebuchets
my
and stuff like.
favorite game.
Yeah,
Let's take shit
exactly. Just
apart
like,
and
how
see if
does
we
this
can put it
work?
back together.
Yeah, and then it never functions quite as well as it used to. But so yeah, I was doing that, and when I was 10 years old for Christmas, my parents gifted me, and I was thrilled. This is like the coolest gift in the world for 10-year-old me. They gifted me a 1-day introductory welding class with my dad at General Air, just like the local welding shop.
Yeah.
And we went and took that class a couple weeks later, and I just had an absolute blast. It was me, my dad, and a bunch of like 50 and 60-year-old men hanging out in this, kind of crusty welding shop, getting taught how to MIG weld. And I think we were stick welding actually. But I so my dad like could tell I was really into it, and so we bought a cheap little MIG welding machine that day after the class and brought it home. And I spent the next couple of years teaching myself how to weld.
Mm.
And I was kind of just screwing around, just sticking things together and not really thinking much of it. And then one day I had this piece of flat bar, mild steel that I had found, and I like angle grinder to tip into it, and then had a piece of square tubing as a cross guard, and I welded a handle to it and made like a wooden sword but out of metal. And I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
what the hell? Like I could be making not, swords and knives and stuff. I haven't even thought about that.
yeah.
And it totally just blew my mind. It was like, because my whole adolescence growing up, I was obsessed with knives too. Like my
Oh,
parents
really?
would get pissed at me because I'd take their Cutco knives out of the knife block and like throw them into the wooden deck and snap the tips off and stuff because I thought it was fun to throw them and see them stick. But
Yeah, I love that.
so
I
I had
love
this
doing that too.
obsession with. Yeah, okay, you get it.
Yeah.
um, I had this obsession with knives and fire pretty much my entire life and building things. And so my parents saw that and we got the welding machine. I taught myself how to weld. I got into doing kind of ornamental fabrication stuff for just
Mm.
neighbors at first, right? Because
Oh,
we were in kind of a
interesting.
rural area. So
Yeah,
neighbor would come by with a broken machine or whatever and be like, hey, can you weld this up? And or someone wanted a light post or a box for their lamp or whatever.
yeah.
And then it all kind of came to. Well, and so I started casually making knives. I built myself a little shitty forge, using like plaster of Paris and play sand and stuff.
Right.
And I was probably 13 or 14. I'd done a couple of stock removal knives, so I'd taken some like circular saw blades and cut out knife shapes and made
Okay.
some throwing stars and stuff like that. Um, and then I got this job when I was 15 or maybe 16 for this local restaurant here in town called Pasta J's. It's like a super old school, famous Italian restaurant in Boulder. The guy
It
who
sounds like it could
owns
be
it, his
your
name's.
restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. I think that maybe one day, man. Um, but so I walk in, it was my brother's birthday. Our family's always gone to this restaurant for birthdays. I walk in the door and there's all this cool architectural metalwork. And I had met an
Mm.
ornamental blacksmith by this point, named David Norrie, who's up in Bertha. And I had taken like a class from him on, here's how to forge an S hook and do a taper and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was just super excited about metalwork. And I walked into this Italian restaurant. And there's all these forged vines and grapes and leaves and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So I was taking videos of it all so I could go and try and replicate it later at home. And some slick back hair, Italian looking dude with a gold tooth opens the door and is trying to hold it for me. And I was taking a video of the metalwork on the inside of the door. And he says, "Oh, are you going out?" And I was like, No, I'm a blacksmith. I'm just taking videos of this stuff. I think it's really cool." And he goes, "Oh, I'm Pasta J, and I'm looking for a blacksmith. Like, you want to do some work for me?" And
Oh,
just
shit.
total serendipitous, yeah, out of nowhere type of moment. And so I ended up doing, over the course of a couple of years through high school, a bunch of fabrication for him. I was making him wine racks. So I was
Oh,
forging all
wow.
these kind of grapevine motif wine racks and cabinets and stuff. And the money that I got from doing that allowed me to get some blacksmithing equipment. And so for high school graduation, I saved up all my money and I bought myself a coal iron works press in
Oh, damn.
2018. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I had like a little Trenton 100-pound anvil that I'd found at some estate sale, and I built myself a forge out of an old vacuum cleaner. And that was when I really started getting into making knives because I finally had all the
Wow.
equipment. I bought myself one of those Grizzly 2x72
Oh,
grinders
yeah. Yeah.
that don't track so well. And
Don't put too much pressure on it. It's gonna
yeah,
cause the belt to jump off.
yep. But that was really the beginning of it. Like once I was able to get all that equipment through my welding and fabrication work, then I was like, I really want to make knives. And I didn't even
Mm.
start with kitchen knives. I started with choppers and
Yeah.
everyday carry stuff. And it wasn't until maybe 2021 that I really started getting into kitchen knives.
Oh, interesting. Um, how when you met, Jay or Pasta Jay, how old were you when you started doing that work for him? Were you still in high school?
Yeah, I was 15.
Holy
So I
shit, so
was
he's
like,
like, "Here's a look at this 15-year-old kid, I'm gonna g"
well, that's
Wow,
what,
that's
like, once
amazing.
again, I'm like, yeah, all power to that dude too. I actually was just down at his restaurant 2 days ago taking measurements for another wine rack I'm building him. So
Oh,
like we
shit.
still have a relationship all these years later. Yeah, and he's been a really integral part of my journey through my
That's
metalworking career.
amazing.
Yeah, but I have this one memory that it just cracks me up because it felt totally normal at the time, but now I think about it and just laugh. But I remember in high school, like junior or senior year, skipping
Mhm.
class to go sit in my car and get on conference calls with like architects and engineers for these wine racks that I was making. And I was like, my teachers would be pissed. They thought I was out smoking weed or whatever, and I was like on a Zoom call with
You're
architects.
like, "I'm a hustler. I'm a
Yeah,
hustler."
I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm making way more money doing this than I am in school. So
That's
yeah,
so
it's
hilarious.
been a very unique journey, and I'm extremely thankful for just the million things that went right for it to happen and for it all to
Sure.
work out.
That's really cool that you've had that kind of experience since you were 15. How old are you now?
23.
23. So,
So
you got all of that, all these years of kind of learning how to operate a business. I feel like
yeah,
that's super tremendous. Do you feel like it's really benefited you?
dude, 100%. I mean, the
Yeah.
the the biggest advantage I've had in my life and in my career is that I got to learn all these hard lessons when I was a teenager and my parents
Right.
were still taking care of me. And like, I got to
Right.
learn how to run a business. I got to learn how to do taxes. I got to learn how to interface with architects and engineers and how to come up with a quote for someone and how to ask for a down payment and how to order materials and make a drawing and like do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so thankful that I got into it so young and have all that experience now. Because like, most of my friends and peers who are my age are just now getting their first like real jobs coming out of college, and I've
Right.
already got 10 years experience doing this.
Right.
And so it's pretty nice.
Yeah. That's wild. So are you like their go-to? Like, what do I do about this? How do I do this?
No, I've had an interesting time kind of navigating that. Like, you don't want to let it get to your head. No one likes the
Right.
person that thinks they're the coolest. And so I've always tried to remain humble and, have humility and everything as
Yeah,
much as I can. And if friends come to me asking advice on business stuff or whatever, like I love talking about that shit.
for sure.
But my general rule is that I won't talk about any of my business or knife making ventures unless someone asks me about it
Oh yeah.
outside of the knife world. Like if I'm
Yeah,
around
yeah,
other knife people or blacksmiths or whatever, I don't shut up and people get tired of it. But
yeah.
for the most
Honestly,
part, yeah. In
yeah, I kinda have the
yeah.
same rule. I don't really talk about knife making unless it really comes up or it's somebody who seems like they're actually really interested in it. Otherwise, like, I kinda sidestep it by saying I work with metal.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I'm a metal worker. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you say that and instantly person is like, "Well, I don't know shit about that, so
Let's move on.
let's move on."
Yeah. Well, and it's because like I don't, some people really love bragging about themselves, and sometimes I like bragging about myself, but usually it just kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm like, I don't want
Oh,
to tell
yeah.
you why I think I'm the coolest. Um, and I find myself sometimes like I've got that brain that just the way I relate to people is by telling a story that I've experienced that is similar
Oh,
to the
yeah,
thing they were just talking about.
for sure. I
But
do the same
sometimes
thing.
that comes off as yeah, and it's like it makes sense to me, but I think sometimes that comes off as trying to make it all about me. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I've
Yeah.
been working on that.
Yeah, I was watching a post about that the other day. You might have you might be ADHD if blah blah blah.
Yep.
And I was like,
I'm
holy
like,
shit,
God,
that's me.
it's
Sorry,
like
everybody.
shit, I've got it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And that's
actually
why I
got
like being around people who get it.
yeah. I was formally diagnosed a couple of years ago with ADHD. And so my whole reason for trying to do that was really just so I could better understand my brain and kind of work
Mhm.
with it than constantly being like, why can't I make a list and follow a list or keep a like I should be able to do it seems like everybody can do this. And I'm like, I can't fucking do
Why
this
is it
to
so
save my
fucking
fucking
hard for
life.
me to do my laundry?
Yeah. If somebody was like, you will die if you don't do this, and I'd be like, I guess I'm dead. I don't know.
It's all right.
I'm
Yeah,
fucked.
it was a good run.
Yeah.
No, I'm the same way. I got formally diagnosed, but I have ADD, not ADHD. And the difference is I'm a very low energy person. Like I
Mm,
spend most of my time just sitting down and hanging out when I can. My ideal day off
yeah.
is like no one's talking to me and I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
And or I'm going on a hike outside by myself or whatever. I really like
Sure.
solitude. Um, but I don't have that hyperactivity component of it where I'm like go go go. I have so much energy. But the attention deficit is the main thing. It's tough to focus on shit that I'm not interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm not like, I think maybe when I was younger, I was a lot more frenetic. But as I've gotten older, I've definitely slowed down. But my brain is constantly going like a
Just
fucking
churning.
million miles an hour in 100 different directions. And yeah, that's really hard to keep track of stuff.
Yeah, but sometimes it's a superpower, and like I've gone back and forth on whether or not I want to try medication for it because there's times where I really do need to focus and I just
Yeah.
can't. Um, but like when I'm
Mhm.
in my shop, it's a superpower. Like it's
Yeah,
so awesome to be able to hyper focus and fixate on this one weird fit up or tapered wedge or whatever I'm doing.
sure.
And also the other side of like I can be fully focused on six different projects that are going at the same time. And
Yeah,
it's just like that's really useful sometimes, and it's useful for the creativity aspect and stuff too. So
yeah.
I go back and forth on whether or not it's good or bad.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's just I think it just is. And,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I don't
exactly.
try to be too hard on myself about it, or if I make a mistake or forget something, because it's just like, "Oh, that it's just gonna happen." And I could get
It's like
mad
one
about
of them
myself,
things.
but it's just gonna fucking happen again. And so, like, what am I gonna do? Keep shitting on myself for the rest of my life? Or am I just gonna be like,
Yeah,
"Well, okay."
that's how it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So your name's Jayden Simisky, but but on Instagram you're the Slacksmith. So what does that mean, and where does that come from? Yeah,
It's kind of a
where
it's
does that
kind of
come
a
from?
multi-layered thing.
Okay.
Uh, the main thing is slacklining.
Hmm.
Everybody thinks it's just because 'cause I'm lazy, which is true, but, it's mostly
Wouldn't
it's
that be the
mostly
Slackersmith
this
then?
Yeah, exactly. Had to shorten it because I couldn't write it all out. But, no, it's slacklining. So going back to how I was saying I really got into the outdoors, one of the pivotal things in my life outside of blacksmithing and metalwork that really helped me develop into the person that I am today is getting involved with the slackline community and world. And so if you're not familiar,
Right.
slacklining, it's like a tightrope. Basically, it's just a flat piece of webbing. A lot of people have seen it like in their local park or college campus or whatever between two trees, a couple feet off the ground. And that's how I started. I got really into rock climbing throughout high school, and I was going
Mm.
to this climbing gym around here called the Spot. It's like a little bouldering gym, so no ropes.
Yeah.
But they've got a slackline set up there, and I was always going and rock climbing, and then I'd finish the day slacklining and just hanging out. And then eventually, I just started going there to slackline because I was like, "This is more fun." And I met some people through doing that who helped introduce me to this whole world and community of
Right.
highlining, where you take the slack line and you put it way up in the air and you've got a harness on and you're connected to it.
Right.
And it's pretty crazy the stuff that people can do on them and the places they can do it. And I was always a timid. Yeah, that's a great photo of me with the top hat on a highline.
Yeah.
Um, people or I was a I love that photo. I was always super scared of heights. So and to give
Oh, yeah.
context in that photo, because you can't really see, but I'm about 400 feet off the ground there.
Oh, right.
Um,
Oy, oy, oy.
but
Yeah, I would have been shit my
so
pants.
yeah, and I've always been scared of heights. I've always been kind of a fearful person, and heights
Yeah.
have always really messed with me. Um, and so I got into slacklining, and it was like someone invited me to go highlining. This guy named Eli, and he's like, come highline with me. I was like, oh, it's so cool. You know, as a teenager, it's like this older guy inviting me to go do something cool that I looked up to. And I was like, I have to go. I have to make a good impression. And
Mm.
so I stomached my fears best I could. And I went out and tried it. I didn't stand up or anything. I just rolled out onto it and just like took in the height and the fear and the beauty and all these different
Yeah.
aspects of it. And kind of got me hooked. And so over the course of the last 8 years or so, kind of coinciding with blacksmithing, actually. I've gotten into slacklining and highlining. I've gotten pretty good at it. I'm certainly not great at it, but you know, I can walk them. I can do some tricks on them, and I really enjoy it. And I don't feel that deep, anxious fear on them anymore. It's a lot
Sure.
more of a meditative, sometimes euphoric experience where you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, I cannot believe this is my life. Like, this is the coolest shit. You know, as the sun's setting and there's birds flying underneath your feet and you've got music in your ear. And it's like, dude, it doesn't get much better than that. You know, it's tough to have a
That
bad
does
day
sound
when you're doing
good.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that.
and so that it, because of the impact that metalworking and blacksmithing and knife making and slacklining and the community of people and friends that I've made through doing that have had on me, and the way that they developed simultaneously in my life, that was where the slacksmith came from.
Sure.
Because those were like the two things. I've got the tattoo, I've got the slackline tattoo,
Oh, shit,
and
yeah.
I've got my shit, sorry, my anvil
Oh,
tattoo.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, they both had a really deep meaning to me, and they still do. Um, and that was kind of where the name came from.
Yeah. That's amazing. The first time I ever slacklined, a buddy of mine, Drew, he would just go to the park and he'd get like I think he just had like a ratchet strap set up
Yeah.
for like tying down stuff, but he would take it to the park and he'd go slackline. And it that was the first time I ever did it. It was so difficult though, because he only had like 1 inch wide webbing and
Yep.
and that's what we were working with. And which means it's just like a little less well, it's a little bouncier. And it doesn't have as much of a wide, I guess, whatever to stand on. The
Yeah,
webbing's so
it
much
kind of
narrower.
wants to do this.
Yeah, dude, so much. But it was fun. It was super fun. But we were only doing like at the park, so it's only a couple feet off the ground. But because he's probably like 140, maybe 150, and I'm like basically 100 pounds heavier than him. And like we had to put it up like almost up to like up to at least our hip, or maybe just above our hip, and we had to like kick our foot
Because it
up.
sinks down.
Yeah, because it's just like Jesus. But when we moved in the place we have here, I also had some uh, ratchet straps. And so we had a jack pine and a red cedar in the backyard about 20 feet apart from each other.
Oh, that's
Or no,
perfect.
they were probably, yeah, they're about 20, maybe 15 feet apart. And I set up a slack line in the backyard for me and the kid to hang out on. We only did it a few times because he was afraid of falling and stuff. And I honestly, unfortunately, just like never really took the time to get out there and do it. But it's something that I
Yeah.
would really like to get back into, because I think there is having a sense of competency and control kind of like within your body, even just to like find your balance and walk on something like a slack line, is it helps you to feel extremely confident and accomplished. And there, anything that you can do in your life, I believe, that helps you to build up kind of like those levels, like say you're like a D&D character and you're trying to build up your levels basically
Yeah.
through this life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all we're trying to do. And so anytime you get the opportunity to do that, freaking do it, man. And yeah, it's something I would
That's
definitely
what
like
it
to get
was for me. I think that's why those 2 things impacted me so heavily as a kinda teen is, I'd never been good at anything before. I
into.
didn't have anything that I was skilled at or that I had put effort into learning. And so they, slacklining and blacksmithing and knife making, and metalwork kind of became the 2 things that I had first found talent in and skill and put effort into and saw myself improve at. And it was crazy. I mean, it totally changed my confidence and my view of myself, and like, and that's a big part of why I teach now. I teach blacksmithing at a local trade school. I teach knife
Mm,
making out of my shop, along with
yeah,
tool making, hammers, axes, and all that stuff, and
yeah,
Damascus making. And I just freaking love teaching because I remember being that self-conscious, quiet, kind of angry, shut-in kid that didn't have any pride in himself, and
sure.
getting to help other people like find that is really cool.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, Mike Ford's got a question. He says, what knife making task do you like the least and why?
You know the answer to that. It's hand sanding. But I find I've been using more stones lately instead of
Sure.
sandpaper, and I
Yeah.
actually really dig using the stones. I think it's a lot of fun. It's like a little bit more meditative, I guess, because it's
Oh,
like
interesting.
you're focused on the smaller details, or at least when I use the stone, it's to do really small details and not like the whole blade.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question, Mike.
All right. Mike
What
also
helps you get
said,
over yourself? Yeah, go ahead.
well, let's before we get to the second question from Mike, uh, in regards to hand sanding, I never thought about the idea of stones, or the fact that you're only changing out stones when you're changing grit, rather than,
Totally.
because with the sandpaper, I'm scrubbing, and like every 30-45 seconds, I'm switching out to another strip of
Yeah,
sandpaper. Versus
and that
working with
takes
a
a lot of
stone, you're
time.
just kinda like, yeah, yeah. I never even really
Yeah,
thought about that.
yeah, with the stone, you can really just like get lasered in on what you're doing without having to think about it. And I do like that. And I think that is kind of the root of what I don't like about hand sanding is it's the tedium, but not
Sure.
like the actual sanding I don't mind so much. It's the swapping out the sandpaper and cutting them up to fit your sanding stick and rotating the knife and getting your
Yeah.
angle of your light just right so you can see your scratch lines and stuff.
Mhm.
And it's always worth it in the end. And once I think the worst part of hand sanding is going from the machine finish to the first hand finish because you have to get all those machine scratches out. And ever
Yeah.
since I started using a disc sander, it's been a lot better. But yeah, that's a tough one for me. But I
Yeah.
really like putting on audiobooks and like getting a
Oh,
snack
yeah.
or something and just kind of hanging out. But yeah, I really like the stonework.
I just had Trey Hill, he's Third Hill Customs on his, or
Yeah, he
Third
does
Hill?
some good work.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
Third Hill.
we were talking to him um, about using, the multi-tool, like a vibrating multi-tool.
Yeah, I've
And
started
dude,
doing that.
you started doing that?
I don't know if I came up with it, but I built one. Yeah, a couple of years ago, and it's
A
pretty
couple
damn nice.
Dude, he's talking about how he's blasting through, and like he's just like he's getting through it super fast.
It's
And
fast.
and I like the idea that, one, you're not changing out the sandpaper all the time, but two, like it's a necessary part of the process, and I
Yeah.
like that it still creates a good finish, without, yeah, like you're saying, like the tedium, and it can actually save you a bit of time. So I'm actually going to be working on getting one of those set up. I've
Hell
always
yeah.
dry hand sanded, and
Yeah.
so doing the whole wet setup is going to kind of be a new thing
It's
for
kind
me.
of
But
weird.
yeah,
That's like you were talking about with the switching out the sandpaper. That that 5 seconds it takes every 45 seconds to switch out your
yeah.
sandpaper or whatever. It adds up when you're spending 12 hours hand sanding, multiple blades or whatever.
Oh my
And
god. Yeah.
something that I've been thinking about lately is getting a mister for my grinder, like a pressure,
Mm,
water mister for the grinder.
yeah.
Because I went and hung out with my buddy Lucas, Gumbeaner Knives. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He does these
Mm-mm.
really nice folders. He also,
Oh, cool.
dude's crazy. He's completely self-taught at making folders and makes like world-class folders. But he also just casually makes kitchen knives every now and again. And he won Best Kitchen Knife at Blade Show 2 years ago. I was like, dude, you don't even make kitchen knives. What's going on here? But yeah, I was down visiting him the other day, and he's got a misting set up, and he's telling me about it. And it's just like, man, the amount of time I spend like stepping away from the grinder, bending over to my water bucket, cooling
Yeah.
off the knife. It's like I bet a mister would add a lot of efficiency to my process.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I have a misting setup. I haven't started using it though because, um, yeah, I think just because I've become so accustomed to the dry setup, but I do
Yeah,
see, even though it might be a messier situation, um, just throw a towel down. No, I'm just joking.
yeah, yeah. It's not that bad. I'm already gross when I leave the shop anyway.
Yeah, exactly. No, I can see how it's a lot more efficient in regards to not having to stop, and obviously you pause and look at your knife, but it helps to alleviate the concern or the worries of overheating parts of the blades. It's not perfect. It's
Totally.
not going to do that perfectly exactly unless you have like a
Yeah,
seriously flooded situation, like
waterfall. Yeah.
yeah, full on waterfalls.
Have you seen
But
what Ben Camone uses?
yeah, yeah. Actually, Gabe Fletcher just got one of those.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and so it's pretty sick. I'm psyched to get back up and go do some work with Gabe, uh,
Dude,
to
I
try to
wanna
use
go to the
that thing.
Gabe shop so bad. He's got
Yeah,
so many cool tools. I
he's
also
he
love the dude. He's a crazy musician.
yeah, I heard that you guys at Dave's show last September, you guys jammed out. It's
Yeah, we
pretty
were playing a
sick.
little bass.
Hell yeah.
Put me in my place. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I can play the bass." And Gabe sat down and just started laying down these disgusting slap bass lines. I was like, "Alright, I'm not
Okay,
gonna mess with
dude, that
it."
Gabe, I know you're watching right now or listening. Yeah, he's he's incredibly talented and versatile. Not just with music and knives, but obviously with his beer brewing, but also like he's also a painter and a drawer. Like
Yeah,
he's got
dude's
all these
talented for sure.
amazing outlets that and a fisherman and a hunter, and it's pretty impressive. He's an
Yeah,
impressive dude.
yeah,
But yeah,
seriously.
he
But,
when I was last time I was at his house, he had a harmonica. He pulled out a harmonica and he started ripping on it. I was like, "What? Harmonica too?
there's yeah.
You
Yeah,
leave anything for anybody else?"
God, I feel that. It's always cool. It's always like kind of an honor being around people who are just really good at stuff.
Yeah.
Because
No,
it's
absolutely.
inspirational. It's cool to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, and I think often people well, I'm sure, and people see your stuff and they're like, I don't even know why I try. And I was like, this you're not doing it for me. You're doing it for
Yeah,
you. Like do it for you. And it's okay to not be the best or to be wherever you're at in your journey. Cause if you're doing it right, there's always something to learn. And so
100%.
to
Dude, that's like the
take
biggest
the learning
pitfall.
journey. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest pitfall as an artist. The second you start doing it for someone else, you're done. It's just, and I think we were talking about this the other night.
dude, it's so
Um,
easy to get fucking burned out on it. I mean, I think
oh
there
my
are
God,
people that have the a particular kind of mindset or the way their brains work where they can do that. That is not my brain at all.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. If I'm not getting pleasure out of the thing that I'm doing, and if I'm like even furthermore like getting stress and anxiety out of, oh, are people gonna like this? Is it gonna get enough
sure.
likes on Instagram? Then
Right.
it's just like I'm not having fun at all. I
Mhm.
don't want to. And like for Mike's question of how do you get over yourself and get it done when you're doing those tedious
Oh yeah.
tasks.
Yeah.
Uh, I can't get over myself and do it when that's how I'm thinking about it. When I'm like, oh, no one's gonna like this, and then I get all up in my head. And then honestly, like I'm even kind of going through that with this current project I'm working on. It's another one of these weird, tenon tapered wedge fit ups
Yeah.
that is a takedown, and they're just hard to do. It's really fiddly. There's a lot of moving parts. It's tough to get it right. There's a lot of put together. Be like, ah, fuck, it's not right. Take it apart, small adjustment, put it back together. That's what I was
Hmm.
doing all day yesterday for like 12 hours. And at the
Oh
end of the day, I
yeah.
caught myself being just like, oh, this thing's not good enough and I don't like it. Like maybe I shouldn't even finish this knife. And I was like, wait a minute. I do like this knife. I'm just worried about the guy who's buying it. If he's gonna like it, I'm like,
Mm,
can't do that. I got well, and,
yeah.
you got to care about your customers, but I,
Yeah.
I need to. I needed to remind myself, like, okay, I like this knife. I think it's cool. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think I did that a lot. And my knives, they don't have all the crazy kind of um extras that yours do. But even still, like just like worrying about the Damascus pattern or getting the faceted handle just right. Like
Yeah,
I would stress out so much about that and what somebody else is gonna think that it really kind of like I hit the brakes and just like wasn't doing anything. But that wasn't helping anything either because I still need to finish the damn thing so I can pay the fucking bills. And
yep.
so, yeah,
How'd
figuring
you
out
move
how to get
past
out of your
that?
head. How?
Yeah, what did you find works well for that?
Well, and I think often what really slows me down is being afraid of making a mistake.
Mm,
And I've struggled, and I've talked about this on the podcast, but I've struggled with perfectionism probably most of my life. But it like to the point where like I'm horrible, like my internal dialogue is really terrible. I'm really horrible self-critic and nothing's good enough. And honestly, like in the end, none of that actually truly benefits me. I've started to come to understand. And so trying to be okay with things not being perfect and also realizing like it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm the one that's
yeah,
saying that it needs to be perfect, but the reality is it perfect isn't real.
yeah,
um and it's okay for something to not be quote unquote perfect because if as long as I'm still continuing on this path, it's just another step in my journey. And so I've shifted that to, instead of it needing to be perfect, I'm just trying to learn something about my process every time, or become more efficient in a particular part of the process every time. And so like the whole using the stones with the multi-tool, that's going to be kind of like a whole new thing for me to kind of play around with and figure out. And so I'm excited for that learning process, simply because I'll still be able to get work done, but I'm also learning at the same time. And I think that when I don't feel like I'm learning or I'm pushing myself or whatever, I do get really burned out. But yeah, to go back to like the whole worrying about mistakes things too, like when I'm constantly worrying about mistakes, I like I get locked up. I'm like in freeze mode. It's almost like a stress
yeah,
response in a way, and I'm
yeah. It's
doing
like
it to myself.
paralyzing.
Yeah, totally. And so then I kind of have to like have a talk with myself and be like, look, say you do. What's the worst case scenario? You completely fuck it. Now what? I'm like, well,
Just make another one.
I guess I'll start over again. And
Yeah,
hopefully, but the reality is, and I tell this to my kid too. I'm like, there are lessons hidden in every mistake. The question is whether or not you have the eyes to see them or the willingness to learn
and
them.
if you choose to see them, that's the big
Yeah.
thing. Is it's a
Yep.
choice. That
And
was what
so,
took me forever, man. I was just like so angry at the world, and like every time something went wrong, I was like, man,
mm,
fuck everybody else. They're all out to get me.
mm,
And I just wasn't making the choice to like find the good in it, or find the
right,
lesson, find the thing I can improve at.
for
And
sure.
it's still a constant battle, but yeah,
Yeah.
just like that knowledge of I can either take this as a defeat or I can take it as an option to or an opportunity to learn something.
Right. Yeah. And so, and my kid right now, he's 8.5, and he loves Legos. He's actually the Lego Smith on
Yeah,
on
no way.
Instagram. Yeah.
That's sick.
So you're the Slacksmith. He's the Lego Smith.
Yeah, I
So
recently Sorry, this is a quick aside, but I
Yeah, go ahead.
recently ran into a chiropractor called the Backsmith.
The Backsmith. I love it. Um, but so he's building, and he's actually incredibly a very talented builder for only being 8.5. He creates so like some really cool. He's not just like I think a lot of kids his age are just kind of like building some bullshit and sticking Legos together and be like,
Yeah.
look what I made. Where he's like he's building full on dragons that are completely of his own creation, and they
I
look
remember seeing the
fucking
blacksmith
rad.
shop. He made a
What's that?
blacksmith shop, didn't he? Did your
Yeah,
son make a blacksmith shop?
I
I
think
remember seeing a photo of that
yeah, and then like
or something like
Josh
that.
Prince, one of Josh Prince's patterns is his son drew the skeleton, like the dragon skeleton, kind of like in a
Oh, no
circle.
way.
And
Yeah.
so my kid saw that and he's like, I'm gonna build that. And he built, it's actually on his page, the Lego Smith. He built that dragon and it looks just like the fucking sticker. It's so
That's so
cool.
cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
And he's doing that all the time. But so all that to say, like he comes up against parts where he's like, he's trying to get things to stay together, and it's like, and he's struggling. And it's super frustrating. And 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 part of it's like he's trying to get like the upper torso of a dragon to stick together to the lower part of the dragon with like two fucking dots, and he's like, why won't this stick? And I'm like, bro, you need more contact engagement. You got to figure out a like this is the weak point. We got to focus on this. And then he like so, but he'll get so hard on himself, and it's kind of sad and hard to hear for me to hear him say this stuff like I'm so bad at
Totally.
this and blah blah blah, because I'm like fuck, I do the
You're
same thing,
not,
and
man.
I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I wonder if I've modeled that for him, and I need to if I probably have it a little bit, and I'm like, shit, I need to be careful. I got to check myself in regards to how I talk to myself, so that when I
Yeah.
make a mistake, he sees me saying, you know what, it's all right, I can make this happen, and so that he turns
Yeah.
around and does that same thing, but still in it. So he's really struggling,
It's
but his shit's good. Dude, I
but
love watching him build. It's so rad.
that's cool, man. It's cool that you support that too. Like I said, I'm so thankful for my parents supporting all the weird shit I was into. Like
Yeah,
it's just that it goes a long way. It feels trivial in the moment sometimes, but
yeah,
man, does it make a difference. But also,
yeah,
like, it's crazy how kids are just mirrors for what you're going through or what you're doing too.
for
They
sure.
just are so absorbent.
Yeah. Yeah, he's actually getting into rock climbing a lot lately too. We just joined the YMCA, and
Hell
they have
yeah.
a very simple rock wall. They have like the auto belay top line systems, but they also have a small bouldering wall. And he really loves the bouldering because it's not super high up, but it's still
Yep.
challenging. And
Super challenging.
yeah, it's super challenging. I got a funny story. Um, I the first time, and actually, yeah, one of the only a few times I've gone bouldering, I went with my buddy Drew again, my friend Drew, who I also did the slacklining with.
Yep.
Apparently, they're always connected. Oh shit! I just
There's a
punched the mic.
theme here. Yeah.
Yeah, but I went bouldering with him, and we climbed for like an hour and a half, and like I thought I understood climbing, and I mean it was still new for me, but I was always been a climber my whole life, like or just like climbing in trees and climbing all over the
Yeah.
place, right? And so I didn't think anything of it, and so we went to leave, and I used to drive an old Datsun pickup, like a '72 little Datsun pickup, and I went
Two-seater.
yeah, and I said bye to him, and he drove off, and then I go to get into my car, and I got to stand up for this. So I go to open the door, and I have no hands-free. I can't. I go to like
Yeah, you
say
can't.
it's one of those ones you just pop the handle like that, right? My
Yep.
fingers were like, like I had no strength, and I had to turn
Dude.
around and use both my hands and be like, oh God! And barely got the fucking thing open, dude. I could hardly hold and turn the key. I was like, holy shit, I need to be more thoughtful
Yeah.
about this next time.
It's actually
And maybe only
unreal
do like
how
maybe do 30 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, you can get carried away so easily. You get excited, you're having fun, you, like, feel
Yeah.
like you still have strength. But no, I've seen it happen time and time again. When I was in Iceland, actually, there was a bouldering gym, and some of the other people that were studying there with me, I took them to the bouldering gym, and they weren't climbers at all, and they
Okay.
had the same thing happen. They way overdid it and just blasted their forearms,
Yeah.
And yeah, it was so funny trying to watch them like pick up glasses of water later in the day. It's like I
They're
just
like,
couldn't do it.
"Uh," like a child. 2 hands,
Yeah.
2 "Where's the straw? Can I get a straw?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, one of
Oh my
these.
god.
But dude, I think the funniest stereotype in Boulder, and it's one of those stereotypes that's true, and you'll see it in other towns that are really heavy on the rock climbing.
Yeah.
You'll see these like 135-pound, like really skinny cut, lean people with fucking Popeye forearms, just like forearms that are like this wide.
Yeah,
And it's just hilarious. Like, oh, that's a rock climber.
that's
Lightweight,
hilarious.
really strong grippers, ready to go.
Yeah. One of the things I'm trying to get my kid to understand is that his leg muscles are way bigger than his arm muscles, and that he needs to try to use his leg muscles more than his arms, but he keeps trying to, like, pull himself up, and I'm like, "Dude, your
Yeah,
legs are bent. Stand up first. Stand up and then reach and
that's a
grab."
big one. I feel like that's a common thing in climbing that people struggle with is
Yeah.
the disconnect.
I mean, I think that's
But
probably why my forearms got all blasted out that one. He was just, like, constantly doing pull-ups for an hour and a half.
yeah,
Um,
it's
yeah.
just like in knife making or metalworking or any art or anything really, like it's a constant combination of skill and technique,
Yeah.
uh, or like physical ability and technique,
Mhm.
and you kind of are flip flopping constantly on which one you have more of.
Yeah. I wanna ask you about music and playing bass. I mean, I can see your instruments back there. Like, when did you start that, and what were some of those early inspirations?
So my dad, my entire life, has been a killer guitar player. Like I have
Oh,
memories as
nice.
a little kid of him playing guitar and me hanging out, as far back as I can go.
Yeah,
And he was always really into the classic, like blue, like Eric Clapton,
sure.
BB King. I grew up listening to the blues, and so that was a big influence for sure. And just seeing him being really into guitar, um, and actually, I'd say that that was kind of the main influence, really. And it
Yeah,
wasn't like I started playing music when I was probably about 10 as well, or maybe a little older, kind of the same deal
okay.
with the other stuff I got into. But I wasn't that into it. It was kind of just like an aside in my life. And it wasn't until I started playing music with other people. I moved into this house in sophomore year of college with these three other guys. And one of them was a really good guitar player. And we just started jamming together like every other night.
That's sick.
And we just developed, yeah, this super cool musical communication between each other. And I
Yeah,
started seeing music as an art for the first time. And I started to see how you could be creative and express yourself and use it like a language and like have a conversation with someone
yeah,
through music. And I think just kind of getting my eyes open to that view of it is big. And so, like, when I'm playing music, I don't really ever play covers or learn other people's songs for the most part. I really just love improv and jams.
oh, cool.
And I do not claim to be a especially talented bass player, but I do love playing bass.
That's great.
Yeah, but it's super fun. It's so cool to just show up to a group of people with your instrument and get to play. And like when I was in Iceland, actually, I was just playing this before we started our thing. I bought
Oh, nice.
this little
Oh,
traveling bass guitar.
that's
So
rad. I have never seen
yeah,
that.
how cool is that? It looks like a ukulele. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it over the headphones, but
Oh, yeah.
it's got a it's got a low E, and it's tuned like a normal full size bass. So I bought that thing when I was in Iceland living there because I didn't have any instruments with me, and it's perfect,
Right.
travel size.
Yeah.
And I got to, for the first time in my life, be a street busker or street performer. So I would
Oh,
go
fun.
around Iceland. Yeah, and I have my little like JBL speaker, and this thing's got an electric pickup in the bottom
Oh,
here.
sick.
So I was able to plug it into my speaker, and I have this little battery powered drum machine that I'd bring with me, and I just play bass and like fuck around on the street, and that's how I bought lunch every day. It was super fun.
No sh
Yeah,
Wow. That's
it was
impressive.
cool. That was like a dream come true for me. I've always wanted to do that.
That's super fun.
Thanks.
I've played guitar since I was 13.
Oh, no way.
I've got a guitar, and so yeah, and but it's one of those things, kinda like drawing, where I can kind of copy other stuff and I can learn other songs and stuff, but I'm not particularly creative with that outlet.
Yeah.
I do enjoy doing it, and it's fun to like sing songs with the kid or for the kid.
Yeah.
But I think he's been taking piano lessons for the last 2 years, and he's also kind of like simultaneously been taking guitar as well. But I think his hands are just too small. Um, and lack like the grip strength for different chords and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and coordination. But piano is really great because it's like all the notes are just chromatic. They're
It's
in
right there.
perfect
Yeah,
order.
it's right in front of you.
So if you have a sound in your head and you can just kind of tink it out, where on the
You can
guitar it's like,
find it.
wait, where the fuck's that fucking note at? And you can spend like
Yeah.
a minute and a half trying to figure out where the note is. Um, and he's really been enjoying that, and now he's getting into drums. He's been
Cool.
my brother-in-law is a fucking talented drummer. He's one of the
Sick.
best drummers I've ever seen perform in my life. Yeah, he's incredibly talented. Like he could make a good fucking living being a studio musician, but he's just like
That's sick.
he works for a guitar manufacturing company though, just like a
I don't
local.
know.
Yeah,
Like
they're called
the
Nash
music
Guitar.
industry.
Yeah, he's super
Cool.
talented. He's fucking crazy,
I have
but
I have
yeah,
such immense respect for good drummers.
it's nuts. Yeah, and he and I share. I send him posts about what do I say about Magic the Gathering, Nintendo stuff, and drumming. Is what I send him
Hell yeah.
posts. Yeah.
The three pillars.
Yeah, but yeah, there's some wild ass drummers out there. Drummers who sing, those are the ones that trip me the fuck out.
Oh, dude,
I'm just
are
like,
you familiar with
how? How does that even make sense? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Are you familiar with the band Primus at all?
Yeah, I
Les
was just talking
Claypool
about.
and
Yeah,
Larry LeLond. So Primus is like my favorite band. Biggest inspiration in bass playing is Les Claypool.
yeah,
Like
he's
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 the
super
reason I
crazy.
learned how to play slap bass. He's the reason I got a fretless bass and all these different things. And there's this band that I really like called Le Special.
Okay.
That is kind of a they're not like a tribute band. They do some Primus covers, but they also have a whole bunch of original music. But their drummer can sing exactly like Les Claypool, like
Oh wow.
so shockingly similar. And so every now and again, whenever they come to town, I always buy a ticket for their show because I just love
Oh
these
yeah.
guys. It's like if Primus had a little bit more synthesizer, I would say
Oh,
that's what
interesting.
this band sounds like.
Okay.
Um, and just watching their drummers sing these Primus songs and play these crazy fucking drum lines, it's like, yeah, it's shocking.
Yeah. I think actually playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater
Yeah,
on the PlayStation
Jerry was a
growing
race
up.
car ride, or
Yeah.
I think it was Jerry was a race car driver. He's in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that was the first time I heard Primus, and that was also I think that was the first time I heard a bass player that I thought was interesting, and it helped me to like that was the first time I was like, "Oh, wow. The bass can be a very interesting instrument." And
Yeah,
I started listening to more Primus, and yeah, his Les Claypool's a fucking insane bassist. I love it so
it's
much.
actually unreal, dude. Watching that guy play bass live is like, wow, I got a long way to go.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn still.
Yeah.
But that, that's good. I like learning. But yeah,
It's good.
very, very inspirational. I love their music. I love the creative, weird stuff.
Yeah.
Do you still play guitar a lot?
Yeah. I play guitar for the kid all the
Cool.
time.
Oh,
Yeah.
hell yeah.
Yeah, I
Do you
love
ever
it. I don't
jam? Do you ever go play with other people?
dude, I've never been a good jammer. I'd like and I think it's definitely something worth practicing. I just like I said, it's never been a super it's never been a creative outlet for me. It's been something like
Yeah.
it's been something that I do kind of on the side for fun, like a fucking party trick, honestly, more than
Yeah.
anything. That's what it is. It's a fucking party trick. And then, but I like when it comes to actually being creative on it or particularly talented anyway, I'm not.
I
I
think
got a lot of
the
party tricks.
barrier
The only thing I'm really good at or creative at is knife making. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the barrier to entry to being creative in music is a lot higher than other things, just because you need to know so much about music theory and what works and what sounds good with other things and how do you harmonize, with certain keys and notes and stuff. And like, I'm still very much in the beginning of all that, but it's pretty. mind numbing sometimes
Sure.
thinking about all that. And
Yeah.
just like I so badly just want to play what I hear in my head, but I can't.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been listening to a lot of classical music lately
nice.
because, one, because it's very I find it as I've gotten older, as I become older, my tastes become more refined.
Uh,
Um, no, actually what I'm doing is I'm listening to it and I'm like, "Dude, I could hear somebody on a guitar with, like, a ton of gain just shredding through this, and it's
yeah.
fucking sounds sick."
I
Um,
love that.
but but, like, Bach's cello suite number, I think, like, 1 or something like that, or 11 or something like that is really good.
Yeah.
It's Yo-Yo Ma is very famous for playing or performing it, and
Cool.
I'm like, "Fuck, I wanna learn how to play that on a guitar," just because I love the sound of it, but I've only found a couple guitarists who have covers of it on YouTube, and you're, like, jumping all over the neck and playing, and it's like, "Oh, fuck," and it's not super fast either, but
That's
it's
good.
so interesting, and I'm like, "I think I need to play more just to get more versed in regards to, like, where all these different notes are on the neck of the guitar and how they can actually relate to each other in a meaningful way."
Yeah.
Because I don't do any lead playing, I don't have the speed for it, and I guess that maybe could be something that came with practice, but I've always just been kind of like a finger picker and a strummer. But outside of
Dude,
that,
nothing wrong with the rhythm section, man. I
yeah,
love the rhythm section.
I'm a rhythm man.
Me too.
Yeah, sick.
Well,
Well,
that's cool.
oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I love those classical songs and just like seeing someone do a cover of it or listening to it and really thinking about what's going on and being like, I cannot believe some fucking person came up with this alone,
Yeah,
for how complex and how beautiful and harmonic and everything it sounds.
yeah. Well, and somebody also, like, especially if it's a composer, like, they're hearing it in their head, and they're kinda singing it to themselves, and they can write it down on sheet music.
Yeah, they don't even need to
Just
play
how
it.
it's
They can just
how
write
they're
it.
just like, and or at least, like, a scaffolding, and then they can work in fills and stuff
Yeah,
like that. It's pretty wild. Pretty
I
damn
agree.
wild. Um, so I guess now I feel like is a good time to get into knives. So when do you feel like you really I only became aware, I think, of your work in the last, yeah, like 3 or 4 or 5 years. Um, and I can't even remember what it was. Oh, actually, I think it was the knife that, well, actually, I think I became aware of your work before that one knife that had, where the blade's, like, floating. You
The
must have sent
floating
me.
blade. I
Yeah.
think I
Oh,
sent you
okay.
a photo of that. Yeah,
Yeah, I got it
I
right
think
here.
I
Let me
sent you
pull it up.
the pro photo. That was a
Put
really
it
fun one.
in.
I did that at Dave Lish's shop in Yelm,
Okay.
and that was my first time meeting Dave. Well, I'd met him at like Blade Show and stuff,
Right.
but I had yeah, I have a funny story about that actually. You'll dig this.
Okay.
I I had a dream. Do you want me to wait till you got it up?
Let's see. I think,
You've got the focus face.
yeah, I'm like, you can keep talking. I'm just
All
trying to
right.
get it pulled up. I don't know where the hell
No,
I
you're
went.
good. Well, I'll talk about the design. So I kept a dream journal for a long time right next to my
Oh,
bed
sick. Yeah.
when I first got into knife making because I'd have all these dreams about knife designs. And
Yeah.
I'd like wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, that's a crazy idea. And then if I didn't write it down, by morning, I just like wouldn't remember it again. So I had
Mm.
this idea like a floating riveted on chef's knife blade. I think I have the original drawing somewhere around here actually from the dream journal. I'll
Yeah.
see if I can find it later. But I had this dream of a floating knife blade and I was like, that's cool. And so I made this quick scribble and I went to bed and then I kind of took the time to like actually iterate the drawing and try and make it a little bit better over the next couple of days. And so I had this design in my notebook that I was sitting on for a while. And I became friends with Dave, and I just fucking love Dave. Like he's one of my best friends. And I like we see eye. Yeah, there it is. We see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, and I think we approach creativity in a very similar way. And I just love how weird and quirky of a dude he is because I identify with that a lot. So I was like,
Sure.
okay, I'm going to. I set up a class with Dave. I was like, I'm going to go out. I got 4 days. I want to learn how you make your mosaics because I just like learning how different people approach mosaics, and I
Right.
want to build a knife with you. And I've got this design. I'm not going to tell you what it is until I'm there. And so I flew out to Yelm. He picked me up, and I showed him my sketch, and it was of that knife. And he was
Wow.
like, "This is rad, man! Like, let's do this." And so we spent the next 4 days making a bar of mosaic. Now that mosaic I brought with me. It's just like a
Okay.
simple, W's explosion, nothing too
Right.
fancy. But
Yep.
so I brought a bar of my own mosaic so we could get started on the knife right away. And then me and Dave made a mosaic together too. But yeah, it was just so much fun. And the creativity and the problem solving involved with making this was really cool. And I think the biggest thing I got out of this in that class with Dave was um, just like learning how to make good shit quickly. Because at the time,
Oh,
I had been making pretty nice stuff, but it just
yeah.
took me so long and I wasn't very efficient. And then I went to Dave's shop, and it's just like his shop is set up for his workflow and his tools are set up for what he needs, and he knows
Yep.
exactly how to use them all. And it was so eye opening for me to see, a master in his element, like doing the thing. Um, but yeah, so we both made a version of my sketch, and I ended up leaving the sketch with him. It's at his shop. If you ever go take a class or hang out with Dave, for anybody listening, or if you're ever down to Dave's shop, it's hanging up in there.
Yeah.
But
I'll have to look for it next time I'm over there.
yeah, see if I can point it out. It's actually right next to one of Josh Prince's drawings too. That was
Oh,
what gave
nice.
me the idea. Dave showed me Josh had left him a drawing, and it's like, oh, I'll leave you this drawing. That would be cool. Um, but yeah, it was just like a funky, weird design that I hadn't seen before. I'd never seen a kitchen knife that someone had done like that, and I think that's a
Right.
big approach I try to take. Is I want to make stuff like we were talking about patterns earlier before we started, where uh, the mosaics that people look at and like cannot figure out how you make that is the
Right.
stuff that is really appealing. That's how I feel about knives, and not necessarily the how did you make that, but the like, whoa, I've never seen that before.
Sure.
Um, so that's what I was going for on that one, and it was super fun. The whole tang assembly with the integral full tang thing going on was all forged out of one piece of mild steel, and then the
Right.
actual receptacle where the blade slides into, there's like one on the bottom and one on the kind of spine of the knife,
Yeah.
was all fabricated. So there's like 12 different pieces of steel all TIG welded together in there, and then we
Oh,
textured it
shit.
all, and we threw it back in the fire and heated it back up and made it all kind of look like one singular forged piece. But yeah, there was
Oh,
actually
wow.
a lot of fabrication going on there.
Oh my
Um,
god. Yeah.
yeah, so it was fun. It was like a super cool experience, and I was actually just thinking the other day I want to do another one of those sometime here soon. That
Yeah.
style, because that's the only one I ever made.
Okay. Yeah, it's fucking slick. And yeah, I think and how long ago was
Thanks,
that?
man. That was 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I think
Okay.
that was 3 years ago.
Okay. So that does kind of track with what I was thinking because but I mean, and it's obviously you've been making knives for a long time, but that I think that was one of the first pieces I saw from you that had me like basically say, you're like, holy shit, I've never seen that before. What the fuck?
Thanks, man. That means a
Yeah.
lot. And that was like, yeah, that was definitely one of my proudest knives, in terms of creativity and execution and
Right.
all that. And just seeing how well received it was by the knife world was cool too. And that
Yeah.
was what kind of started me on my journey of like, what other weird shit can I make? Like, what other
Sure.
stuff hasn't been done?
Oh yeah, I see your pic with Dave. Yeah. No, it's super cool.
I love that guy.
Um,
Uh,
well, and so you've started doing more like all these other ones too that have like these. Oh shit, this one, oh, it does have a picture. There we go. I'm gonna pull this up actually over on your Instagram.
yeah, you have the takedown one.
Yeah, the takedown. Let's see, do the screen share. Yeah,
Yep.
so
I love
sick.
doing those. That's what I'm working on right now, actually. I'm doing basically the exact same thing on
Mhm.
another knife.
Yeah. Well, I love that like there's these contracts of finish and texture. They're like or of finishes. So there's like this variability of texture going on
Yeah,
in this piece. From the
I love
Damascus to the
that.
wood to the tang to the the tenon, I guess.
Yeah, the wedge,
The
the
wedge.
tapered wedge.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. I love using weird materials and I love playing with textures. And like even on the Tang, I've still got 36 grit scratches on there, but I think it
Right.
looks cool and like a
Yeah.
little bit of forge scale.
Oh yeah. And
Um,
this is the one I saw.
What do you mean? Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That was the one
Dave.
I brought to Dave's place. Yeah.
Yeah,
You did get to hold that, or I don't know if you held it or not, but I think you saw it, right?
I did. No, yeah, I think when we were in the hotel room, held it
Cool.
and
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
apart. You took it apart,
Um,
and it was cool.
yeah, and that's the other thing is like, okay, so we were talking about ADHD earlier. I like to I like to fiddle with things. I like taking stuff
Sure.
apart, like we were
Yeah.
saying. And so these takedowns I really like doing because I make these little Damascus hammers that go with them. So you can
Oh
take the
yeah.
pin apart and slide the handle off and like play around with them. And I think that's important. Like if someone's going to buy a really nice knife from me, I want them to be able to play with it.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and so that was kind of the approach I took on that one. That's still like I think that's the coolest knife I've ever made. I love that one so much. I was so
That's
proud of
pretty
that
damn
thing.
cool.
And the forged
Yeah.
stand was really fun to make too.
Yeah, I
And just
bet.
like treating it like a piece of art, you know, and
Well, it's
trying
just
to
such a unique thing, you know? Like,
yeah.
I've
Well,
never seen that before on a knife. I've
I
seen
got
it
that
in some of the
idea.
artistic work, artistic or, like, artisanal or, like, ornamental blacksmith stuff, but never
Yeah.
in knives.
So that's where that idea came from. It was kind of a um maybe two or three facets to it. There, are you familiar with Liam Penn? You ever seen Liam Penn's work? He's up in Alaska as well. He's in Juneau. He's another young
I don't
guy.
know.
He makes some really cool stuff. He came out and visited me a couple of years ago, and I got to
Okay.
take him on the Highline, which was really fun.
Oh,
But
nice.
he learned from Adam DeRozier. He's got kind of the DeRozier style going on.
You said
Um,
Liam Penn?
Penn, Penn. Yeah.
Okay. Let me
So
see if I can
he's a good buddy of mine. I really like this dude. Super talented knife maker up in
yeah.
Juneau. But
It was in
when he
Juneau.
visited me, yeah, up in Alaska, he's not too far from all those guys.
Yeah.
Um, but he visited me a couple years ago, and we were just connecting all over all this stuff, and he was telling me about these Inuit blades that he had seen that were wedged in the back. Like the tang went all the way through, and then there was a short wedge, but their wedges went sideways. So like I've got a knife right here.
Mm.
Their wedges went this way instead of this way, you know.
Yeah, side to
And so
side
he
rather
was the
than
first
spine to
one.
belly.
Yeah, exactly. He was the first one that kind of brought that idea to my attention of like using a wedge to hold the handle to the tang. And then my buddy Lewis Evans, who's studying blacksmithing at ACBA in Charleston, like he's an actual blacksmith. He doesn't even make knives. Um, he came by and we were working on this. And I think it's on my Instagram too. It's the other pinned post of it's like a San Mai with the wedge holding it in the side.
Yeah.
That was the first attempt at doing the tapered wedge to hold a knife together. And me and Lewis
Oh,
and our buddy
right.
Ryan made that.
I
And
remember when
that
you
knife,
did yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, you're good. That knife was like the original attempt at okay, how do we make a knife you can take apart?
Yeah,
And it was super fun. I mean, we just got like a bunch of beers and some friends together and like spent the
yeah.
weekend in the shop just having a crazy time. Yeah, exactly. And so this one,
This
it
is
was
the first
super.
piece I saw from you,
Oh,
I
cool.
think,
Okay, right
that
on.
really caught my attention.
Yeah,
I was like,
this
"Whoa,
was
what's happening?"
this was the first knife that I made that was like kind of blew up in a way like a lot of other knife makers and collectors and stuff saw it. And, like I took it to Blade Show and a bunch of people came by and were like, "Oh yeah, I saw this." I think Blade even sent out an email with it. But
Oh, wow.
this thing was cool, but it was wildly impractical. You know, you can see there's fucking wrought iron on the edge. There's a pin
Sure.
right where you want to hold it. Like there's a lot of things that don't make this a functional knife. But it was an art piece and it was beautiful and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
fun
yeah.
and it was
No,
weird
it's fun.
and
Does it have
different.
enameling too?
Um,
What's on the belly of
no,
the
it's
handle?
titanium. That's all forged titanium.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Wait a second. The blade oh my god, I'm only seeing it now. The blade and the tang are completely
Yeah,
separate.
it's separate. Isn't that cool? So the whole
'Cause you can
you
barely
could
see it.
take
You can
the
kinda see a little bit of, the
on the angle
blade
you
as
can
it
sort of see it. I wish I
yeah.
had it. I used to have it in here, but now it's at my parents' house.
Yeah, no
But
worries.
yeah, the whole handle's forged titanium, and the original idea was like, okay, what if we made a handle that you could have a whole set of blades for? Like, what if you could have a
Yeah.
paring knife and a chef's knife and a bread knife, and you can just like
That's
put
such a
whatever
good
blade
idea,
on you want.
for sure.
Yeah, and I still want to do that. I haven't done it yet, but it's on the list.
Nobody
Um,
steal that. It's
yeah,
Jade's idea.
that's right. I'll come get you. So anyway, that was like the first iteration of this idea of like I took what Liam had told me about wedges holding knives together, and I took what
Yeah.
Lewis had told me, you know, from learning all this traditional joinery and blacksmithing stuff that he'd been learning, and that was what came of it. And then the first iteration of the vertical spine to belly pin in the back of the handle rather than in the joint of the knife was this one that I made that had a really cool like hurricane looking plug weld in the middle of it.
Okay.
Um, it's on there. It might be a couple of posts down if you want to look for it. But
Yeah, I'll look for it.
that one was cool, and that one I made right before I went out to Salem Straub's shop for the first time, and so I got to bring that with me to his place and show him. And kind of I try and bring like a example of my work whenever I go take a class with somebody, especially
Oh,
somebody
sure.
that I really look up to.
Yeah.
Um, so that was cool, and I got to bring it by Will's shop too on the way out because I drove through Montana,
Yeah.
and that was a cool
Yeah.
knife. I was really really happy with that one.
Here, I'm gonna
Do
pull
you
up
have any
that
luck
GIF thing.
finding it?
Yep, I
All right,
found it.
cool. Yeah, here we go. So this was the first one with the um, pin in the back and the Damascus butt plate and everything. And then this one, I actually remember I was really inspired by the way you do your faceted handles, especially with that facet that swoops up into the heel. Like
Yeah.
you've got the octagonal facet on the kind of front half of the handle, and then you continue it into the heel.
Yeah.
I had seen photos of your work, and I was like, "Oh man, that's really slick." And so I tried it for the first time on this one, and I thought it turned out pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
But
I love it. Yeah, I can see it.
yeah,
It
so
looks
this
good.
thank you. So this is the first one with that whole assembly process. And that mosaic on the back is actually what I made with Dave Lish when I was out there.
Oh, I got you.
Um, and that was kind of the beginning of this thing I'm on. It's like the most original idea I've had in knife making, so I'm trying to continue doing it. But
Yeah.
honestly, after this one that I'm working on currently, I'm like, I need to take a break from these.
No, it's fucking sick. It's so cool. I love
Thanks,
it.
man. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun doing those, and I want to keep doing weird stuff like that. I like the concept of like, how can you make a knife that you can play with
Yeah.
and just unusual joining techniques, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I keep trying to think of different ways. Like I have a design concept for a hidden pin or a way to attach handle scales without pins, but it's like but it's really complex. But the whole goal of it is to create an aesthetic that looks very simple, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of shit going on in it that you can't actually see because I've hidden it
Yeah.
all. And I haven't gotten it quite dialed in yet, but I'm excited for when I actually do, because I think it'll
Cool.
be cool. And I think like I do like the idea of playing with or I guess the idea of being able to take it apart, almost like it's a puzzle box almost a way, but
Yeah.
it's a knife.
Yes. I
So
love
you
those
have all these
puzzle
pieces and you
boxes.
put them in yeah.
You take
I
it
love
apart
puzzle
once and
boxes.
can never get it back together.
Like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually one of for the hidden pin construction that I've designed or came up with, it was kind of based on the idea of a puzzle box, but I'm like, but if this is going to be hard glued up and like locked into place, it's going to have, at least the way I've come up with it so far, is going to have some sort, like an individual mechanical fastener of some sort to hold things in place.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I just need to start doing it. And honestly, like it's
100%.
good to have this stuff because I don't know about you, but I've definitely experienced a bit of burnout. And I think it's again from just doing the same stuff over and over and over again. So now I'm started
Yep.
playing with like when I do a faceted handle, like doing a little bit of faceting on it to jog the lines and make them interesting. I actually I just was looking at my my account status the other day, and one of the posts that is flagged is the post of a handle. And and
Too
I'm like,
dangerous, man. It's too sharp.
yeah, I was like, what? It's just a handle. I was talking to oh god, who was it? Oh, Dennis Tyrell. Dennis Tyrell was just at my shop taking a class.
Is this the one?
Yeah, this one was
Oh, dude,
flagged.
that's wait, okay, so hold on. So are you using scrapers to get these crazy sharp, like flowing facets, or how do you do that?
Hand sanding. I'm using my flat hand sanding stick. That's it.
You're
I'm not.
a psychopath, dude. It's
It's
crazy.
yeah. Well, and it's just. I guess it's just like getting it to flow together. I don't know. It like
That's cool, dude. I like
this
that a
was
lot. Like,
this
that's
may
a
be a couple
really
hours of work.
unusual. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I know I told you this a while back over, Instagram, but I definitely wanna come take a class with you one of these days
Oh yeah.
because that is super cool looking. I like the flowing facets.
Yeah.
Like, are you familiar with, Jordan Lamote?
Yes.
His work is cool, and I really like some of this scraper work he's been doing with these, like, flowing faceted line like, I'm so used to straight lines, I'm trying to get out of that.
Yeah. No, I feel you. Well, and for me, this was like this is my small way of trying to fight the kind of like the mundane aspect of kind of doing the same shit over again, over and over again. So I'm like,
Totally.
okay, what if I just found Jordan's thing. Um, what if I start fucking around with the, the handles a little bit? Nothing too crazy
Yeah,
because I'm not
yeah,
trying to add a ton of extra work, but something that's interesting and new for
yeah.
me and something that
Yeah,
other
something
people will
different. Like,
find
if you
useful.
try one new thing, no matter how small it is each time, I think that's what keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
This stuff is crazy, though. The whole scraper thing is such a mind-blowing concept to me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but because I don't know, I can't see the shape, but I would imagine that those at least that last one he was using was actually curved because if it's too flat, it's so easy to accidentally wash out lines. But if it's slightly
Interesting.
hollowed, and
Huh.
it helps to preserve those the like those ridges. But now he's
They're
looks like
really
he's using
sharp.
a flat hand sanding or a flat sanding stick. Yeah,
Yeah, like a file or something.
yeah,
I thought this was
but
cool,
yeah,
that and what I really liked about this handle is how subtle it all is.
right.
Like, none of it is really obnoxious, right? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's a
Excuse me.
little bit bless you. Sometimes it's a
Yeah.
little bit too much when I
Oh
look at
yeah,
faceted handles.
for sure. It's like faceting for the sake of faceting. Uh,
Yeah,
I mean, none of it's really necessary, right? But
no.
like I've seen some
Could be a
stuff that's
broomstick.
yeah, I've seen some stuff that is yeah, like way out of hand, and I'm just like, okay, let's take a step back here.
Well,
But
I've done some stuff that's way out of hand. I have to force myself to calm down sometimes.
yeah,
That's
um,
okay, this brings
yeah.
up a unless you have a good question, but I'm
No, go
curious
ahead.
about what you think about this. The classic form over function or function over form type of thing, like, where do you tread that line? How do you decide what is necessary and what's not? Because that's something I've struggled with in my knife making journey is, over prioritizing looks and not thinking about function until it's too late.
Yeah, so I got my start. So I joke that I got my start in knife making because of salsa dancing. But actually, my appreciation for knives and culinary knives really actually started um, by learning how to cook when I was a kid, and it was because my mom was pissed and tired of me complaining about food. She's like, "Guess what? You get to fucking cook dinner tonight." And I'm like, "Ah, no," but I ended up loving it, and so the cooking has always been a fun thing for me. Um, and so I think that's where my appreciation for a culinary knife started. And then I started working in restaurants, and I worked in restaurants for a long time before I started working for Bob Kramer, who was a culinary knife maker. And so, but even before that, like my relationship with the knife was always as a tool first. And so for me, I'm like, it is really important that it performs well as a tool because like yeah, to me they absolutely are tools first. And but at the same time, I think there's definitely something to be said about the aesthetic or kind of the artistic aspect to the knives. And so yeah, I focus on making sure like the things that need to really perform. I think the handle should be comfortable and the knife should cut well for a culinary knife, especially a knife that's really going to be used like day in day out and should be ideally as high a performance tool as possible. But again, there's always like there's shades of gray on that too because there's flexibility. But anyways, but then outside of that, I my me playing with the form in regards to the Damascus patterns, and even how deep I etch the blade, and how that etching is going to affect the performance of the cutting performance of the knife, or the shape of the handles. If the facets, like the first time I started doing the faceted handles, it was like I think it was me and Yella Hasenberg and Don Nguyen, who were kind of all doing it at the same time on culinary knives. So basically the faceted Western style handle, because faceted handles
Hmm.
on Japanese knives have been around forever, but
Yeah,
not in a
was as old
Western
as forever.
style. Yeah, for sure. But not in the West, not a Western style faceted handle. And so it was when I started doing it, I was like, this, I like that it looks cool, but does it actually still feel comfortable? And
Yeah,
I worked on it to a point where it was comfortable, and so I was like, yeah, sweet. So it not only looks cool, it's got these great lines, but it actually still functions as a tool. It's still comfortable to hold and use. Um,
yeah,
but I think I do need to do some work to kind of break out of that. So where I'm like less concerned with the functionality, and more kind of tailoring, not every build, but some builds, to play with more of the actual form of the piece, and playing with, yeah, different ways of combining materials and using them. And like I love
totally.
I've been in love with joinery work, especially steel joinery work. I'm trying to think, like John Ariani, Cliff Dufton, those guys are some of the guys I first saw steel joinery work from, and tenon work. But obviously it's been a thing that's been around for a really long time. I just had never seen it
Yeah,
before those guys. And so more and more seeing that, and trying to see or figure out how that can be incorporated into knife builds. I would love to play with that more, but I haven't taken the time to do that. And part of it scares me because it's like I'm still like, I need to pay the bills, and so
yeah.
I have that mindset, and so trying to figure out where to fit in time to do kind of like that exploratory, experimental kind of work. But I do think it is super important to be able to have that as part of the way you work or at least the way I work as a knife maker, because I can't just be making the same knives over and over and over again, because
Yeah,
I get super burned
yeah.
out. And so I need that thing every once in a while that's gonna kind of like satiate that variability, or that variety that my brain really like wants and craves.
Dude, I'm so in the same boat. Like if I make like even with these pin knives, this is only the third one I've done that I'm doing right now, and I'm already
Okay.
starting to feel pretty burned out on it.
You're like,
And I'm
all
just like,
right.
and yeah, like okay, I get it.
That's funny.
um, one of my headphones died. Let me plug this thing in. Can you
Yeah.
still hear me all right?
Yep, I
All
got
right,
you.
cool. But it's funny you say it's super cool to hear about the way you approach that things or knife making with the culinary background and everything. Because I've had like the exact opposite journey. I came into it
Hmm.
only caring about form and only caring about how it
Oh,
looks
interesting.
and being very
Yeah.
experimental because I just started doing it for fun. Like it was a hobby. It wasn't a
Yeah,
job,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And it wasn't until I fell in love with cooking that I actually started thinking about performance and how does the knife work. And that's only
Mhm.
been in the last like 3 years, really,
Sure.
where I've like actually got into cooking. I've actually found joy and creativity in doing that too. And my knives have improved massively since I've started cooking a lot more. But
Yeah.
it's funny to hear you say too, because like I think my three biggest influences on the designs, especially of handles that I was doing, now and a couple years ago, was you, Hasenberg, and Don.
Oh,
And
funny.
so hearing you being like, it's just like, oh, okay, that adds up.
That's funny.
um, but yeah, no, I just absolutely love the different approach that all of you guys take on that. But yeah, the like faceted Western handle is such a captivating concept to me. I just love the way that they look.
Yeah. Well, and I remember early on, I think it was like maybe a couple of years into doing knives on my own. Um, I predominantly did like like highly contoured Western style handles, and they're super comfortable. But it's also um I was taking it to a level that was completely unnecessary. You can have a pretty, actually surprisingly comfortable handle that doesn't take 2.5 or 3 hours to sculpt versus what I
Yeah.
was doing. And
Yeah.
and but I was talking to a guy about westerns and how like part of my approach to hogging the block down. So I when I put a handle on when I was doing the fully contoured stuff, and I do still do those every once in a while. But anyways, my process is glue the handle on and then cut out the profile and then don't mess with the profile anymore. And then hog out like basically the corners of the block to just start jamming, like grinding tons of material away as fast as possible. But there are some kind of like intermediate spots where I would like stop and see how it feels girth wise. And I was like, wow, one of the times, and actually if it happened a few times, I was like, wow, this like, even though this is kind of faceted and it seems like there are these hot spots on it, this is actually still super
Feels
comfortable
good.
handle. And
Yeah.
I was like, maybe this is a thing. And it was actually like a year and a half before I actually started or actually made one. Um, and yeah, it's been a really cool thing to kind of like pursue and also to see like how it is. And I obviously like I'm not the only one that kind of was doing them earlier. But it is cool to hear like people like you were an inspiration or seeing people play with them. But I remember early on that I guess what I was trying to get at is somebody was like, you know, the Western handles are contoured and Japanese handles are faceted, but you don't really blend the two. And I was like, there's got to be a fucking way.
Why not?
Th-
Yeah.
there's got to be a way. And so I was like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna figure this out. And then fucking, I figured out a way that worked for me, and it's fucking good. And I really like, I like the way that you are, like I think on this belly on your handles are curved, but then they do incorporate also the facets as well. It's like really
Totally.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's like a lot. I mean, I'm such a coagulation of all the people I've learned from style wise. Like
Sure.
Jason Knight was the first really good knife maker I ever learned from.
Sure.
And I still make Jason Knight handles to some degree, like the really big bird's beak in the back and the
Yeah.
rounded kind of like there's the front two fingers and the back two
Hmm.
fingers, the whole rounded area in the back two fingers.
Yeah.
Very much a Jason Knight thing, you know, the whole heel of my knife. And a lot of it is because like I've always been interested in fast cars. I love the way that sports cars look.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Jason about where his handle designs comes from, and he was like, "Yeah, it's sports cars. Like I look at old
That's
cars."
so funny.
And I was like, "That's so cool, man!" And I love the way it looks like it's moving. You know, it looks like it's
Yeah.
fast. It's got some direction to it. And then like when I went out and learned with Salem, with the he taught me how to weld integral bolsters onto a flat blade, and the way that he approaches it, he's very much a faceted handle, geometric kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I went in having all these preconceived notions about how a knife handle was supposed to be and the rules you cannot break and all of this. And then I saw what he's doing, and he's leaving like flat spots on the underside of the bolster, but it's
Right.
just got nice 45s on it, and the transitions are rounded slightly, and it's
Yeah.
really comfortable. And I was like, shit, dude, I didn't know you could do that. And it wasn't until I went and saw him doing it that I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's not as um, cut and dry, like strict you can and or you cannot as I thought.
Right. Yeah.
And so yeah, it's kind of just been a constant journey of that. But it's always really cool when someone comes up with something fresh or original and hearing what their thought process on finding that is. And like the sculpting thing you were saying with the blocky earlier, that's how I see a lot of people who do the really highly contoured handles approach it. Is like get your profile, get your width, break all the corners, and then round it off. But just having the like self awareness to stop at that break all the corners step and be
Right.
like, hey, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, and it's funny that you say the sports car thing because I've also been a fan of like hot rods and motorcycles. I've
Yeah.
never owned any, or and I've also never learned how to operate a motorcycle someday, but not right now while I depend on my hands
I was gonna say it's a good
to make money.
retirement plan.
Yeah, I know. um, but the lines in sports cars and hot rods and stuff have always been um I've really liked I really like the flow of lines like Art Nouveau, which was
Yeah,
happening like in the teens to the 20s, or I guess maybe almost to the 30s.
yeah,
It's kind of a a thing for a while, and I just love the flow of lines. And so when I first started making chef's knives, I was seeing all these handles, and obviously I had my experience working for Bob, but I was like, I didn't want to do Bob's handles. One, because I feel like it was very uniquely his style, or very,
Yeah,
I guess, kind of like a trademark aesthetic of his style. I want to do something different, and I loved the handles that people were doing on Bowie knives. Jason was one of those, but a lot of Bowie knife handles. And Nick Wheeler was another one whose handles I
yeah,
always really liked. And I was like, why doesn't anybody do those like on a chef's knife? And
yeah,
so basically my handle design was inspired by Bowie knives, but tailored to a culinary knife, because you don't need like a giant fat butt on a chef's knife
totally.
necessarily.
Yeah,
And obviously that plays into balance and stuff like that. But that is actually been a major and why actually the butts on my handles are curved the way they are, because it's taking inspiration from Bowie knives. It's just scaled down for a chef's knife,
yeah,
and fucking comfortable, super comfortable.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of the similar approach of where I ended up in my handle style these days. Is like, yeah, I started making choppers. I learned from Jason. I was doing Bowie knives and hunting knives and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like, how can I adapt this to a kitchen knife? I love the way it looks, but it's not functional for a kitchen knife.
right,
But how could it be? And I think it's something like I really dig, who is it? Like Bert Foster, his
oh
style
sure,
of
yeah,
handles where it's like super contoured and flowing, but there's also that really crisp, sharp line in the
yep,
transition between the convex and the concave. I dig that look.
yeah. I think the maker whose stuff I saw first that had, I mean, I'd seen it on a lot of people's knives, but I'd never held a handle that felt more comfortable up to that point than one by Claude Beauchamp. He's a Belgian maker, and actually, I haven't seen him at Blade Show the last couple of years, but his work was. He was actually my table neighbor the first couple of years I was at Blade Show, and I saw his handles, and I had all these preconceived notions of what a handle was supposed to look like and feel like, and and I actually was kind of poo-pooing, I'm not out loud, but I was like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
And then Lynn Ray came over and was talking to Claude and holding his knives and like checking him out. I was like, well, if Lynn Ray's looking at him, maybe I should take a
Yeah.
second look. And I went over and I asked if I could pick up a piece, and I was looking at it, and I held it in my hand. I was like, what the fuck? It fit my hand perfectly. It was like all of a sudden, it's like one of those scenes from a movie where somebody's lost their memory, and then everything like comes back all at once. All these images are flashing through my head, like it's all been a lie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay,
Yeah, exactly.
never mind.
Start getting tunnel vision.
I thought I knew something, and I definitely didn't. I still feel like I kind of see a lot of what I held as rules as or actually not quote, I held rules on what things were supposed to. Now I see a lot of my
Same.
rules as guidelines. I think
Yeah.
it's the only places I'm really like kind of hard and fast on and have rules around is especially like edge profile on chef's knives, and so chef's knife profile and edge geometry. But outside of that, like
Yeah.
you can do quite a lot of things. And even though I
Yeah.
have
And
kind
that's
of rules or guidelines around things, those can also be broken if you do it in a meaningful way that it still looks good and works well.
functional.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a big part of where the creativity comes from, I feel like, is like once you know what is non-negotiable. You need a good profile, you need a good edge geometry, and it needs to be comfortable.
yeah,
Everything else is up to interpretation.
right,
And it's cool to break out of that mindset of like there's only one right way to do this.
right.
Um, and that I think that people who do that are the artists and makers that I am most attracted to. Um, when I see their work is like you can see that they're thinking outside of the box and they're
Oh, yeah.
not being rigid and stuffy.
Yeah. Dude, my mind, like, my brain's already starting to like think about using like tapered pins and stuff like that, and
Yeah,
how to
do it,
make
man.
make a takedown using that stuff. Oh my god, it's so funny.
If you think
Uh,
of anything cool, call me up.
hell yeah. Um, so God, where was I gonna go from? Okay, so you started out with choppers and stuff like that, but you've kind of graduated to culinary. You said your mom worked with your grandmother at her Italian restaurant. You must have grown up eating a lot of really good food. Did you ever spend a lot of time in the kitchen? No, you didn't. Oh my
No,
god.
my mom was a server. She was a waitress at her grandmother's Italian restaurant, and she hated
oh,
it. Both of
oh
my
shit.
parents are real estate agents,
Okay,
and my mom, I hope she doesn't watch this. It's not that she's a bad cook, but she just doesn't cook.
that's fair.
And my dad's really good at grilling salmon and
Nice.
pork chops, and that's about it. So,
Way to go,
yeah,
dad.
no, I have got like no culinary background whatsoever,
Okay, but
me
you've
or
been
my family.
so okay. So you've been kind of like on a journey of discovery though with cooking,
Yes,
and you've started getting. So
100%.
where did that start, and where is it going, or where has it
It's
been, and where is it going?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, it's these last 2 years probably,
Okay.
maybe even 2.5 or 3 years, like, basically while I've been in college. Freshman year was kind of a shit show, so I wasn't thinking much about cooking then, but beyond that, I had got into knife making, and then I really started to get into making kitchen knives because kitchen knives are a really good canvas to show off Damascus,
Right.
and so that was kind of my original motivator for getting into them.
Yeah.
And then I was just eating like shit. I was eating out all the time, and I
Oh,
got to
sure.
that
Yeah.
point where I needed to start paying for my own food, and so I stopped eating out.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Fuck, I have to cook." And I've always enjoyed cooking, but I've never, like, it wasn't a passion of mine growing up or anything.
Okay.
And I had all these nice knives, and I was like, "Man, I'm selling knives for, sometimes thousands of dollars to people who are like professional, real cooks, and I have got no idea how to use them. I don't know how you're supposed to hold them. I don't know how you're supposed to, avoid cutting yourself. I don't know how you're supposed to do any of this. Like, I should put some time into learning this." And through doing that, I found that I really, really enjoy cooking. And I don't make anything fancy. Like, I'm not doing any, fine dining or anything.
I
Uh,
got you.
but I don't eat out at all anymore. I cook all my own meals. I love cooking for other people. That's like one of my
Oh yeah.
favorite things to do, bringing people
Yeah.
together. Um, and that's kind of just, yeah, that's been where my culinary journey is at now. And I've been interfacing or interacting more with actual chefs and friends now, not just like people I'm selling knives to, but people that I've known for a long time. And they've independently found their own way into the culinary world. And they're either working as, line chefs or private chefs, or they're, helping develop menus or whatever for restaurants, and getting to hang out with them and like talk about knives and have them by my shop and then like go cook a big meal for a bunch of our friends together and like
Right.
see what they're doing. It's been really fun. So I'm starting to learn more about cooking. Um, and it's just been super rewarding. And I think that the communal aspect is a big part of that. I like people. Uh,
Yeah.
and just like seeing people come together, seeing the community and the memories that people get to make. Like, I even think back, that was a big thing I was thinking about when we were at Yelm, or in Yelm at Dave's show last
Yeah.
year. I walked into the kitchen and it was like you and a couple other people just absolutely throwing down for like 30 people. And I was like, that's cool. You guys are really making it happen in here. And I was
Yeah.
just outside drinking. But that struck me. There's something there. It's tough to say exactly what it is, some sort of ephemeral thing, but like
I mean, if
the
you think
the
about it, it's like been part of our human existence. We've
yeah,
especially a long time ago, we really and we still rely on each other, but even more so, in
yeah,
Paleolithic times, and even even a couple hundred years ago, still really relied
totally.
on each other to provide all the different things that come together, not only the food, but the tools for making the food, and the wood for building the fire, and all of that shit was
Yeah,
important. We had to work together to
yeah,
create these meals so that we had a way to sustain ourselves, and provide nutrients to ourselves and
and more,
or and to each other.
and a place to tell stories and to make
Yeah.
connections, and like, yeah, it's kind of like an archetypical role or experience.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's like sitting around a campfire. Like, everyone
Yeah.
feels that feeling sitting around the campfire. That's indescribable because we've just been doing it forever.
Well, honestly, and I remember I was actually just talking to a friend about this the other night. But I was like, what was it? It was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I read or I saw this TED talk by a guy named Simon Sinek. And his TED talk was start with, or and he's the author of a book that is titled Start with Why. Um, and his TED talk is really good if you can
I
find
love
it.
TED Talks. Yeah.
Yeah, only a few minutes. But it's a really, I think for me, it was an impactful TED talk because his question was, why do you do what you do, whatever it is? For businesses, why do you make this product, or why are you selling this product? For doctors, for people out in the world, for restaurants, why do you do this? Like everybody has a why. And if you
Yeah.
understand your why, it helps it helps you to, or at least for me, and I think his message is, it helps you to really like focus in um on doing it as best as you can, and having, and kind of being a motivating factor as to why you're doing these things, so that when you do start to feel burned out or are having a
Yeah.
hard time or getting kind of tired of it, you can kind of reflect, oh yeah, the reason I'm doing this is because this, that, and the other thing. And for me,
Yeah.
making culinary knives and tools, like I grew up being in the kitchen a lot, loving food, and having those experiences um, of people just cooking all the time, and and having, like, playing games and telling stories, and all the smells and everything, and just, and of course eating all this delicious food. um and so that is a big part of my why as to why I make knives, culinary knives, is because I'm trying to make a tool that helps to, and my why can be somebody else's why as well. There no
Yeah.
people, there doesn't have to be a why, an individual why for every single individual in the world. But for me, I think yeah, to make a tool for people that helps to elevate that experience, because honestly, like, of and I think part of it was maybe some marketing for like fucking TV dinners and stuff like that, and pre-made processed shit. But we're told for years, what, don't spend all that time in the kitchen, just open the box and add water, kind of
Yeah.
shit.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah. And we're sold this idea that cooking is drudgery, and
Yeah.
potentially it could be. And again, it's not necessarily for everybody, but really, like, cooking can be a really meaningful and purposeful experience. And so, but the tools are also really important. And often cutting up food feels, to people, feels like drudgery. It feels like a massive chore that they don't want to do. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, I want to make a tool that helps make that experience, what is typically considered the worst part. Like, we
That's the
consider
best
hand
part.
sanding the worst part of knife
Yeah.
making. Imagine we could be given a tool that makes hand sanding the most enjoyable part of the experience of knife making. That would be fucking amazing. I don't think it's ever going to happen,
Yeah. I
but
hope someone does, man.
I would be happy. I would love for somebody to do that. But what I'm trying to do with my knives is make a knife that takes that thing that's like the worst fucking part of doing the job to making it the most enjoyable and fun part of the job. Of course, before eating and sitting around with people you
Of
care
course,
about
yeah.
and sharing
But
that.
no, I agree. Like, I think that's such a cool way to approach it. Because, yeah, if you can bring joy, I mean, that's how I got into cooking. Like,
Yeah,
I was making knives and I started using them to cook with. And I was like, holy shit, this is a joyful experience. Like, I'm
yeah,
having fun right now. It doesn't feel
right.
like drudgery. It's exciting. It's enjoyable. That's cool, man. I like hearing your approach on that.
Yeah. I just found, I did the search. So his name is Simon Sinek. His last name is spelled Sinek, Sinek.
Hold
And
on, let me pull it up.
his TED talk is called Start with Why. And yeah, it's a good one. So people, anybody listening or anybody watching, you should go check it out. I guess it's almost 20 minutes, but yeah, it's super good.
I just pulled it
It,
up. I'm watching it tonight.
yeah. And I've actually, so I got that book. I've been following for him a long time. He's got a lot of really great ideas around running a business and also just kind of generally like relationships with people. Because also at the same time, whether we like it or not, customer service is about kind of like developing relationships, whether they're long-term relationships or short-term relationships. But
100%.
it's all like relationship development.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Start with why. Why the fuck are we doing that shit?
That my parents hated when I started with why. Like,
Why?
do your dishes. Why? But I agree. It's a powerful question, you know, like I think that drives a lot of the stuff that I do today is thinking about something that we all take for granted or assume that's how it is, and then being like,
Yeah.
why? Why is it that way?
Sure. Yeah.
Can be
Absolutely.
powerful. Can be
Oh, yeah.
powerful, and it can be powerfully annoying.
I got a piece of yours that I want to pull up that when I first saw you build these, I was like, holy fuck, what a good idea. Tell me about this style, these monolith constructions. Yeah.
Okay. So, oh man, there's a lot to unpack here. I mean, I guess the beginning, for anybody who hasn't figured it out, it's a pipe. And it's also a knife. But so I don't even know where to begin. I guess I'll start with the monolithic stuff. So I've always tried to, because I started my knife making journey as a blacksmith. I've always been a blacksmith. And you brought up Lynn Ray earlier, actually, and I had a wonderful conversation with him. By the way, him and his wife are just like the loveliest people ever. But awesome. I have always tried to maintain blacksmithing as an important skill in knife making, because there's a lot of, here's another one of those monolithic things. Yeah. There's a lot of knife making that doesn't involve blacksmithing. There's a lot of grinding, you know, you can do stock removal, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to have a forge and an anvil and a power hammer and a press, you should know how to use them, I think. So I've always prioritized the blacksmithing side of things. And doing these monolithic knives was kind of the solution to my dilemma of, man, I hate hand sanding. Yeah, like the piton knives, those are fun. But it was kind of my solution to the dilemma of like, I don't like grinding, I don't like hand sanding, I don't like finishing. And I've come to terms with it now. I'm more okay with it. But you know, a couple of years ago, I was like, man, I really don't like all this stuff, but I love forging. Like, how can I maximize my time forging and minimize my time doing everything else? And so that was where I started coming up with these random things. And then also like bringing the outdoors into it, for example, with the piton knife that you've got a video up there. That's a rock climbing piton that I pulled out of a wall, you know, right outside of my house. And
this one is?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
The handle's made out of a piton that I found in a climb. And it was loose. So, you know, I didn't need to be there anyway. And I just pulled it right out. Yeah. But forge welded the blade on and tried to make something new and creative out of it. And that's actually another one of my kind of original things in knife making that I'm really proud of. Like I really enjoyed coming up with those, and the forge weld to get the blade on those things is crazy. I'll show you a video of it sometime, but it's there's not a lot to work with. So getting a good forge weld is a little scary, but just like I wanted to maximize forging time. And so I started doing these monolithic knives, whether it was using a piton as the handle or doing the upset, like I-beam kind of construction, like this one I have on my desk here, where the handle's kind of been upset out of the flat bar and then fullered out again. And then I got into kitchen knives, and I was like, and Jason Knight had a big influence on this too, because he's, you know, really big on all this forge to finish stuff, and I like what he's doing. I learned how to make choppers from him, which is kind of a big influence on that stuff. But I started making kitchen knives. It's like, okay, well, how can I do an all steel kitchen knife? And I think I made one. Yeah, actually, that's maybe one of the first all steel integral handles I did that you just pulled up. That one was fun too. I had seen a video of Dave Lish doing these forged heads on the back of stuff. So I forged in like a little smiley face on the back. But there it is. I didn't like how unbalanced and heavy they were. So I was at Dave's shop in Yelm. And I had just done that one you just had up, and I was like interested in this idea of doing all steel handles. And I told Dave, I'm like, yeah, it's really heavy. I'm thinking about drilling a hole in the back of it to lighten it, hollow it out. And, he, of course, Dave was like, oh, well, you should just put another hole in the side of it and turn it into a pipe, man. That's a great idea. So that was actually Dave's idea to turn it into a pipe, and I kind of rolled with it. And it solved all the issues I was looking for, and it added a new bit of functionality, and it's kind of a unique, weird thing. Who's got a kitchen knife that you can smoke? But
I fucking love it so much.
Yeah, so that was
so happy.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you appreciate those. And honestly, I think the craziest thing out of all of this to me was that Abe from Eating Tools, who is like renowned for the very nice high-end boutique kitchen knife purveying, wanted my fucking pot smoking knives. I was like, what is happening right now? So yeah, I was really proud of that. But that was kind of the genesis of that idea. It's like, I want to maximize forging time, minimize grinding time, make something that's cool and indestructible, and like you could take it camping with you. It's a multifunctional tool, and I just thought that was super cool. So that was kind of my angle on all that.
Are those forged out of stainless, or are they?
No, they're just carbon. I think I was making them out of. I think those were 1080. I was using Lawrence's hex bar actually.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah,
good move.
But I love that stuff. But yeah, that was kind of where that came from.
For sure. And and you don't have to give away your secrets, but it does look like it's forged pretty close to like the shape before it's maybe cleaned up and stuff. So especially in the handles.
Yeah, it is forged very close to shape. And actually, I love talking about this because the forging process and flow is cool. And on those knives, if you look closely and you're used to doing this stuff, you'll notice that they are not actually a forged texture. It's been textured with a rotary tool. So I do a lot of grinding on them. I forge them really close. I clean them up with the grinder, and then I rotary texture them and throw them back in the fire. Yeah. But for doing them, the usual forging flow is I'll start with a square bar about 1 inch, 1 inch square, and I'll turn it up on a 45 and I'll flatten it down on that 45. So you have a flat here, and then you've got your kind of hexagonal facets with a really sharp line running across the cross section. And then that's what becomes the handle. I don't think I have one sitting around here, but that's what becomes the handle. And then it's kind of finer work with the smaller hammer to start doing some of the curves and getting it as close to shape as possible. But yeah, the basis of it is just a flattened 45-degree square.
I can imagine. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, good. Yeah, that was it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I have forged a few tangs to shape, and it is tricky. And I can't imagine what it's like with all that extra mass and
third dimension.
Yeah, how that really like fucks with, when you hit it along to, like, say you want to work on that swell on the belly going back to the butt of the handle, like how that's gonna really like cause actually as you narrow it, the volume has to go somewhere. Yeah, so it's gonna kick the handle up, and then you gotta fight it and bend it back down, and forge it back down. Yeah, God, so much back and forth.
There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of trial and error, but there's definitely a way you can do it. I mean, it's like playing chess. That's why I like forging so much. And making knives and whatever. Like, we're problem solvers. That's kind of the main role we take. And so having to think a couple of steps ahead and try and figure all that out is really enjoyable. But definitely. If I ever get the chance, I'll show you how I do them. They're super fun, and they're really not as hard as you might think. And it's just, like I said, it minimizes grinding and maximizes forging, which I always like.
I got one of those. I have some of that hex stock, so maybe I'll have to. If you come up, I'll have to have you do some forging.
That'd be sweet, man. I'd love to. What's your shop like? Do you have what's your space like?
My shop is basically the size of like a 2-car garage. Nice. And actually I only need about I only need about actually half of it though for the grinding room and the forging area. Cool. I do have like a clean working area, but all I end up really doing there is like gluing up handles. And maybe if I'm doing like the handle, like playing with the facets and stuff like that, I'll sit there and I'll do that. But otherwise,
fine tuning.
The rest of the shop, or the other half of the shop, just has is full of crap.
Yeah.
I've
God, it
slowly,
happens
I was
quick.
like, wow, look at all this space. What am I gonna do with it? I know, I'll fill it up with crap.
Oh man, that's a relatable problem. Um, do you do your forging, you like especially your Damascus and stuff? Are you using a power hammer or a press, or what's your mechanical might?
Yeah, I'm using a press predominantly, and then I'm using the power hammer, especially when I start to get close to the finished dimension of the bar. I'll start using the power hammer, just honestly more than anything to planish the material, so
Totally.
it's smoothed out and there's ideally as little forge scale on it as possible, or that if there is any forge scale, it's just like a thin layer.
Flat, yeah.
Um, and then yeah, and then I have a what do I have? Yeah, like a 220-pound Peterite anvil.
Oh, sick.
Um,
God,
and
those are nice anvils.
yeah, and I got a nice and it's the one I have, it's decent, but it's not in perfect condition.
Yeah.
One because of me using it, but actually before I got it, it was a I mean, it is a farrier's anvil, but they done a lot of stuff to like modify it.
Yep.
And so it's kind of tweaked out of shape in some spots. But honestly, because of the work, like if I was a ornamental blacksmith or something like that, I would probably require a much nicer anvil, but or a more tidier anvil. But mine,
Totally.
because I'm like those spike anvils, those that are just like
Yeah,
a
the
block
steak
with
anvils.
the steak
Those are
anvil.
cool. Yeah.
I'm like, honestly, I could do all my blade forging on one of those.
Totally.
And so yeah, so I don't need anything too crazy, but it
Well,
works great. I really
that's
like
what
it.
I was talking about earlier with like knife making. You don't really need to do a lot of blacksmithing,
Yeah.
but it's fun to seek it out. You know, there's ways you can
Yeah,
have
for
more.
sure. Yeah, and I've
more
been
of
wanting
it.
to do more. I feel like I almost feel like I've like painted myself into a corner or pigeonholed myself where like all anybody expects from me are like highly refined, super like high-end chef's knives. But actually what I'm most attracted to and more interested in is doing kind of like more of this monolith kind of brute to forge stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how do I incorporate that and actually able to sell it? Because
That's the hard
I know
part.
I like it and I want to do it, but I don't know if it'll move. And so, and I
Yeah.
hate that I'm like making these creative decisions based on whether they're sell or not. And so I
No,
think
but that's
I got to set it up so I just do it, and whether it sells or not, it doesn't fucking actually matter.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the tough reality of being a full-time knife maker. Is like, yeah, we got to make money, we got to pay bills.
Yeah.
And you take on risk when you try something new and you don't know if you're going to have a clientele for it.
Yeah.
But you also take on risk if you do the same thing over and over again and want to just die. So it's kind
Yeah.
of
I
choose your
hate my
battle.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I remember watching your video series like right at the beginning of COVID where you were forging this really cool monolith, like
Oh yeah.
upset choil,
Yeah.
kind of EDC type of knife.
Yeah.
I
Just a
remember
little
like,
bench
damn,
knife.
yeah, I was like, damn, I didn't know Mareka did this type of stuff. And then I watched those videos, like, wow, this is really cool. And then I went to my shop and tried to make one.
Yeah, they're fun. I always hold on to all kinds of scraps just because they're like, but more than anything, they're fun little things to forge out, and I like half the time I just give them to friends or whatever.
Yeah.
Because more than anything, it's like it's good practice.
Mm-hmm.
Good practice, and especially in cold times, it's a good way to kind of start the day and warm up a little bit.
Yeah, turn the forge on.
Turn the forge on, start doing some forging. Because often, like especially if I'm on a actual project and I'm at a part that I don't really want to do, it's hard to motivate myself. But by doing the forging, I can kind of like build a kind of momentum that I can carry on to doing other stuff. And
100%.
so that's one of my tricks for getting over myself and getting things done, I guess, is do something I really want to like or really want to do, and then leave
then
that.
Move on.
Yeah, where I think a lot of people do the opposite. They'll reward themselves, but my brain doesn't work on rewards like that at all.
No,
It never has.
I get that for sure. I have to do the same. Like after my 7th or 8th day in a row, just doing finishing work, I have to turn on the forge and just make something.
Sure.
That's like that chopper I showed you the other day that I had forged. It was like I had a buddy come over and I know I can't get much done when I have a friend in the shop as much as I'd
Oh
like
yeah,
to.
for sure.
And so instead of like being frustrated that they keep talking to me, I just like do something fun and put
Yeah.
aside the actual projects that I'm working on.
Yeah.
Have a little sanity check.
Yeah, no, it's important. That's good. It's a good move. Well, what are you? So you just did that chopper for funsies, but are you going to be at Blade Show this year?
Yes, table 9K. Come hang out.
Table 9K. Oh yeah, here's a nice picture of you all looking
Oh, you got the
fancy.
suit? Yeah, I love that photo. It's okay. So for anybody that doesn't know me personally, it's all a joke. I like going to Blade Show and acting real serious, but I'm actually not a very serious person. But thanks. Yeah, are you gonna be there this year?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm gonna get in Thursday, probably Thursday morning. I'll probably do a red eye on Wednesday. I get there Thursday morning, and then I'm teaching a class actually Thursday that is more geared for makers.
Oh,
So
hell
I'm
yeah.
gonna be teaching a class that is what is it? It's material conservation for the forging smith. And so it's how I use like just a little bit of basic math to figure out how my volume and the volume of material that I need for making a particular knife. I know there are
That
some
sounds
makers out there
awesome.
that use weight, that go by weight, but weight doesn't necessarily, for me, translate to shapes. It's still a little too abstract for me. Where
Yeah.
if I can do a little bit of math based on some basic geometric shapes, that'll give for me that gives me a truer sense of the actual quantity of material that I need for a particular forging project, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
No, I agree. I'm the same way. If I ever do a calculation, it's a volume calculation on shapes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then if I have time, I might do like talk about how I use it a little bit for Damascus, but I doubt I'll do that. I'll probably just spend the whole time talking about mathematics on forging stuff out. But I don't know. I might. And
Yeah.
but yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Are you doing a table or are you just teaching and browsing?
Yeah, I'm just teaching and cruising. Gabe Fletcher is actually going to be there with a table this year,
Oh,
and
sick, so you can hang out.
so I'm gonna have my devil knife actually on that
Oh,
table.
dude, those were so freaking cool. I forgot to say that, but that was one of the coolest mosaics I've seen in a long time.
I appreciate it. We actually just got some professional photos back from Eric Eggerly. Let's see if I can find those.
Yeah, the full devil face with them lined up spine to spine is just like,
yeah.
oh.
Well, I'll just pull up Gabe's Instagram because he got that picture. Let's see, Anchorage. Yeah, and making that devil skull, that was probably so Gabe, the concept, Gabe was like, hey, do you think you could make a devil or a pattern, some sort of devil pattern, like a devil skull or a devil something? I don't know. And I was like, actually, I already have a skull design. So I just need to figure out how to, or at least like a drawing and kind of roughly broken down, but I'd have to figure out how to make, oh, that was the wrong one. How to make the devil's horns as well.
Yeah.
And so actually once I actually stopped and took the time to try to figure it out, it actually took me a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. So, because I had to break the whole design down into individual elements, and then had to do a bunch of math to figure out how much of that element and how all the proportions, so that everything came together properly to look like a devil skull.
So
and
is
then,
that
yeah,
when I was looking at that, I was trying to kind of break down what you guys did, and it looked as though it's like a bunch of oddly shaped pieces that are all kind of forge welded together for the skull, right? Like you're using wedges and stuff to kind of create that.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. Yeah, that's so fucking rad with them lined up back to back like that.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, not wedges. So they were all like rectangular pieces or square pieces.
Really?
Yeah. It was just, and it was just kind of standard processes for like forge welding material together. It's just a matter of organizing them in a particular way, but getting like the cavity for the nose and like the striations above the teeth and the cheekbones and the eyes and the horns and the teeth. Like it was tricky, man.
It's fucking unreal, dude. I think
So
that's
many pieces
probably
went into it.
That's probably my favorite mosaic I've seen this year for sure, but in a long time.
Yeah.
I thought that was so creative.
I appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's canister." I'm like, "Nope."
No, it's not.
They're like, "Well, how did you make it?" I was like, "Very carefully with pattern welded elements." And you just you can do it. It's just, and that's why, like when I teach my like I just taught Dennis Tyrell. I taught the
decoding class.
Yeah, decoding mosaics class.
Yep.
It's figuring out to be able to decode, you actually have to start at the other end and truly deeply understand how the material is moving. And then figure out how to break down at least Damascus patterns. If I'm going to reverse engineer a Damascus pattern, I have to break it down to all the different elements that make the pattern what it is, as small as I can, and then reverse engineer those. And there's but yeah, truly understanding how the material is going to flow makes a big difference. And actually making that devil skull, I developed a new process for figuring out angles, what angle to rotate a bar to forge it on a particular bias, at a particular angle to forge it on the bias and create a particular line flow. Because some of those lines were like a 2-to-1 ratio rectangular bar, but the billet was split half and half, black and silver. But how do you get it to go from corner to corner? You can't just forge it on a 45-degree bias. You actually have to do like you have to go farther. But what angle is that exactly? I don't fucking know. And then I figured out a system for doing that. And it fucking worked perfect for all the pieces.
That's
super crazy.
Cool.
Dude.
It's cool to learn about the more like mathematical and numerical approach to it too, or methodical at least.
Yeah.
Like if I were to go about trying to create something like that, I feel like I would do it in such a chaotic and disorganized way. It would involve a lot of overnight soaks in muriatic acid and just fucking trying to jam shit together. And but it's cool. It's cool to hear about.
Yeah, no, it's super. I'm excited to be at Blade Show and to be teaching and to have some work there.
Cool.
I'm actually teaching on Friday and Saturday too in the mornings. Friday I'm going to be doing a deep dive on chef's knife design. Again, this is like a little talk I would do like at Hammer-Ins or something. But they used to be rules, but now they're more guidelines. But especially for somebody who's new to chef's knives, who want to better understand the function of the blade profiles, the edge profiles, and the edge geometries, and the different grinds, and the relationship to the handles and the handle shapes, and all that kind of stuff. That's what that class is for, and also for collectors. And then the other class is demystifying Damascus patterns. And again, it's like it's kind of an intro for people who are interested in getting into Damascus, and for collectors who are interested in better understanding Damascus patterns.
That's cool.
Because I think, unfortunately, there's a major disparity between collectors and their understanding of what makes some of the Damascus patterns that we as makers are creating. There are people who are really pushing the envelope and doing some wild stuff, and there are collectors out there that see that and they're like, they might as well be looking at a random pattern for all they can. Holy shit. It's like, I think it's really just a matter of educating, because it's like saying that a monosteel blade is the same as or like something with engraving, like like a guard, like a mild steel. It's like saying a mild steel guard is the same as a fully engraved guard with gold inlay.
Yeah,
it's like, no, it's not the same fucking thing. It's all right.
Well, it's still a guard, isn't it?
So it's just a lack of understanding, and which creates an opportunity for education.
That's cool.
That's all.
That's cool
all
that you
about.
approach it that way, and I like that you're gearing it towards collectors too, because every now and again I'll get a collector or a good client who sticks around for buying multiple knives, and every now and again that person will like really deeply understand what's happening, and it is just the best thing ever when they like know what's going on, or they come to your shop and come see what you're doing and stuff. I love that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's I think that is definitely one of the places for where collectors can gain a greater depth of understanding and appreciation, because just like engraving, I see Damascus as a way to embellish the blade, like engraving on hardware, without engraving.
Yeah.
But you're doing all the planning and then the forging and designing and the assembly and cutting, stacking, chopping, whatever, all that stuff. It takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And a lot of forethought. And you're not just slapping shit together. I mean, some people are just slapping shit together, but a lot of us aren't. Especially the people that are really pushing things.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, what projects do you got going? You said you're doing another one of those wedge.
Yeah, I'm doing it
right now.
I'm doing like a wedge kind of Nakiri Santoku hybrid type of thing right now, and it's got very similar to that most recent one I did with the one you saw at Dave's show. It's got the same takedown with the Damascus plate on the back. Today I'm going to etch it. Today's an etching day for me, so I got to go over to the shop and put a final hand sand on it, and while that's etching, I'll finish the wood on the handle, and everything else is done, which feels good because that has been one of those projects that just seems like it has gone forever. But so I'm looking forward to that. I'm like, there's so many things I've learned in the process of this one, and so many things I'd like to do differently on the next one. Specifically with the pattern, honestly, the pattern gave me some trouble. And so it's good.
Oh, really?
This is embarrassing, and I wouldn't say this if I hadn't fixed it, but I completely forgot to harden the knife before I ground it.
Oh, I've done that.
Yeah, dude,
multiple times.
Dude, I like got this thing down to like 5,000ths at the edge before I realized that it was soft, and I was like, shit, like, am I gonna have to reforge this entire knife? And I managed to say, because when you heat treat a knife that's too thin, you get the wavy edge.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
And so that's what's happened to me in the past too. And and this is why I say, like, I feel like I've fought this knife and it's gone on forever. There was just so many days where, like, instead of working on furthering the project, I was working on saving it from disaster. And fortunately I did. But the way that I solved it, and I was super stoked, I ground back the edge a couple thousandths so that it was a little thicker. I think I got it to about 7 thou at the edge. And then I heated it up in my heat treat oven to 600 degrees really slowly. I ramped it at 100 degrees per hour.
Okay.
And then I put on an anti-scale compound. It's not the nuclear stuff, but it's like the PVC anti-scale. Okay. And I just absolutely drenched the thing in anti-scale compound. And then I did another slow ramp up to heat treating temperatures. And I think this time it was like 200 degrees per hour. And because it had the anti-scale on it, I wasn't worried about decarb. So I felt okay with leaving it at heat for that long. And I ramped it up super slowly, and then I did my normalizing and my annealing and grain refinement and everything. And then for the quench, I quenched it upside down. So I quenched spine first into and then all the way down to the edge. Because my theory about why it does the wavy thing is the edge is so thin that you quench it and it sucks all the heat out immediately, and so it contracts. And then the spine contracts at a different time, and you get this tension and compression thing going on throughout the cross section. And I think that's what gives it this. So my theory was, if I quench the spine first, where the majority of the mass is, it'll all cool down more consistently. And that's exactly what happened. It came out perfectly.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So I was pretty stoked on that, because I was like, fuck, dude, if I have to restart this project, it's going to be bad.
Be very unhappy.
Yeah, exactly. So I was very thankful that it worked out, and I was very proud of my resourcefulness and figuring that out.
Awesome.
So if you ever have a knife that's too thin, quench it spine first.
I will
and
try to remember that.
maybe it'll go better.
Yeah. I
Um,
the ones I did, I even had more meat than that. They were still at about 20,000. So I
yeah,
all my blades start out with flat grinding before I go into hollows and convexing and
nice.
all that
Yep.
stuff. And I was grinding 2 knives, and these are knives that I had forged out and had been sitting around the shop, and I was like, "All right, I'm gonna finish these out finally." They were like had been around for a couple of years at that
You
point.
forget. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't write anything on them, and
Yep.
so I was like, "All right, they're good to go."
Yep.
And so, yeah, I did all the flat grinding. I was like, "Wow, these are grinding really easy," and I was like,
Yeah.
"No."
Yeah.
And I went into the hardness tester, and I tested them. They're dead soft. I was like,
Oh.
"Oh my god, I can't believe I did that." And then I heat treated them, and yeah, sure shit, they became bacon. So
Oh.
what did it? Oh, I turned both of them into much smaller knives, so they're
Yep.
gonna become integral hunters. And I
Cool.
haven't finished either of them out yet, but I will
Dude,
eventually.
that's what always gets me though, is it's the like something will sit on my bench for a couple of months or even a year or two, and I'll like move through so many other projects and I will forget to write, hard or soft on it.
Yeah,
And you just assume, and then
yeah,
you pay
you
for
gotta
it.
do it, people.
Yeah.
It's gonna make such a difference. I have knives all laying around all different places in the shop, but they all have labels on them. They say they either say hard or soft, or it's like
Yep.
H or S.
That's so smart, man. I usually do that, but sometimes I don't. And I'm like, oh, I'll remember. And then,
I've come to realize I cannot trust my memory.
Yeah,
That's just
me
not a
too.
thing.
Yeah, that ship has sailed, man.
That's so funny. Do you have any projects you mind sharing with us that you have coming up outside of that? Like,
Yes.
what are you planning to take with you to Blade?
Fuck, dude, we'll see. um, I'm going to try and bring as much as I can. So I've got this Nikiri Sentoku hybrid thing with the takedown that I'm working on. That's like my really nice project that I'm doing right
Mhm.
now. And I'm doing it for a collector who I'm super excited to be working with. And then I've got another one. I'm trying a new geometry that I
Mm.
haven't done before, and it's a 16-inch hollow grind to like 5 thousandths on the edge, and then
Oh,
flattened
wow.
on stones for the rest of the way. So it's basically a compound grind,
Yeah.
but much like thinner than what I'm used to doing. Whereas like normally when I compound grind, it's thicker at the edge, and you do the compound, and then you bring in the flat again. But so just a little bit something different, which I'm excited about, and that's just like a little K-tip Gyuto type of thing
Yeah.
with the wah handle, and it's I've been doing a lot of San Mais recently, so I have a ton of pure nickel that I got from Steve Schwartzer a while back, and I've just
Oh,
been
great.
churning my way through that. So
Yeah.
I really dig the wrought iron with the nickel shim, and then
Yeah.
either just straight
It's a good
black
look.
or Damascus. Yeah, super good look, very classic. So I'm working on a couple of those, and then you know what the weird project I've got right now is it's a kama. It's one of those like Taekwondo. You ever seen that? It's like a hand sickle or a hand scythe.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You ever seen those?
Yeah.
It's like a martial arts weapon, but it's like 18 inches long this way. The blade is like 7 inches going this way. I made it out of
Right.
San Mai. I forge welded mild steel for the handle so that the whole thing's not Damascus.
Oh, wow.
And the handle's thick, so I don't feel weird about using mild on it. But that one's exciting. There was a custom order. I don't normally do custom orders, but if someone comes to me with something like really weird and out there, I'll usually say yes to it. And this was really weird and out there. So I've been learning a lot doing that. And I'm really looking forward to finishing that one up. And I'm trying to think outside, that's like all the knife projects. I've got like a whole pile of mosaics just sitting on top of my heat treat oven right now that are in various states of having been used up from the bar. So I don't really
Okay.
have a good excuse to do any more mosaics right now, which is sad because that's
Yeah.
what I like doing. But
Yeah, I feel you.
I gotta just like make knives and grind them instead of forging Damascus and forging knives and then leaving them.
Yeah,
But
I've been working through my backlog of
yeah,
exactly that. Made a cool Damascus, made a knife out of it, and then set it down to get back to
yep,
this
to
work
go
I was
do another
actually
one.
supposed to do. Yeah.
But so yeah, that's the majority. And then, like I was saying, Pasta J's, the Italian restaurant, I just went down and took measurements the other day. I'm going to be doing an extension actually to that original wine rack that I made like 8 years ago when I was a teenager, which is kind of a cool full circle moment. And
Yeah.
just going into that and being like confident and being like, yeah, I could do this in a week, whereas when I was 15 and took that on, I was like, I don't know if I could do this, but I'm going to say yes. So it's a cool full circle moment there. But yeah, so I got all these knives that I was just telling you about are all things outside of any shows. So I got to finish all those, and then I got to prepare for Blade Show. Like if I can bring 2 knives to Blade Show, I'll be happy.
Sure.
Because it's definitely
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, like as long sadly, I've already paid the money for my table and everything, so I gotta hopefully sell something. And if I don't, that's all right. Not the end of the world, but always feels good to walk home from a show with more money than you started with. But
yeah, for sure.
So we'll see. But I know a lot of good people at Blade that come every year, and I have some good people that tend to buy a knife or 2 every year. So I think we'll be all right.
Oh,
but yeah, just kind of in the rush right now. And then I'm going right after Blade Show. I'm actually going to be flying from Minnesota to Blade Show instead of from Denver. I'm teaching blacksmithing to kids at a summer camp for 2 months in Minnesota.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. It's going to be fun. It's like total old world forge, like hand cranked coal forges, no electricity.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and I'll have like a cabin in the woods where I'm hanging out just teaching blacksmithing. So I'm like it's going to be like a working vacation. I'm really looking forward to it. And but I'm definitely feeling the pressure right now to just get all this shit done, get ready for Blade Show, build this wine rack and do all these things. All good things, but it's busy.
Right. Well,
what about you?
What else? I was just going to ask while you're on it, what other things shows or other events you got going on?
Oh, yeah. So Blade Show is like the big one for sure. I try to go to Blade Show every year. I finally got a good table. So now they've kind of got me on the hook where I'm like, I don't want to lose my good table.
Right.
But Blade shows, like I try to go every year. The Dave List show in September, I think, is
nice.
on again. So I definitely want to go back for that. Hope to see you there. I'm sure I will.
I'll probably be there. Yep.
Cool. What else? I think that's it. I don't do a whole lot of shows. Actually, I do have a Colorado show coming up. There's April 5th, I think. It's coming up in a week or 2 here. A local knife shop owner. He owns Element Knife Company in Denver. Mostly like Japanese imports, but they do some Western stuff too.
Sure.
And they're doing like a little local knife show that I'm going to be at, which will be really exciting.
Oh, killing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. What about you? You got anything cool in the works?
Cool in the works? Well, I have this new. So you've probably seen Gabe Fletcher is using a lot of gradients on his Damascus patterns lately, and so I still have tons of patterns that I have designs for, but I've never made. But I want to really kind of get a grasp on playing with these gradients in different and unusual ways. And so I'm actually going to kind of start working back through a lot of patterns I've made before, but using these different elements just to see how that really plays, and to get, again, to like gain a greater familiarity with these gradients that that I've only done a little bit of work with, but the little work I've done, I fucking love it. And the goal is always to kind of, especially with using those, is to just like to create more depth in what is essentially a flat image, a 2D image, creating 3D in a 2D world basically. And I think it's going to be fun to experiment with that a bit. I have a Santoku right now that it's just a random pattern, but by using this process of making the gradients, it like I don't have to texture it or anything. I literally just make the steel and forge a blade, and it's got tons of activity. It's rad.
So when you say gradient, are you talking about like the initial stack up, or
the initial stack up is it gradiates from silver to black, from top to bottom, and then black into silver. So there's like the colors fade through each other.
Are you using multiple, like more than 2 steels?
No, I'm just using 1080 and 15 and 20.
And you're just playing with the amount of each layer?
Yeah, the thickness. And so my 15 and 20 is a 1/16 of an inch thick, and my 1080 is an 1/8 of an inch. And so I just build up layers based on how I want that to look. And I think it's really gonna, I think it's an extra step for sure to make that and then to incorporate that into a pattern. But like I said, for a random pattern, especially for somebody who's forging, for random
Yeah.
pattern, if you get, sure, it's an extra step at the beginning, but at the end you don't have to do any extra texturing, grilling,
Yeah.
drilling, cutting, anything. You literally just forge a blade and it creates a lot of really cool activity. Like that's going to save you material loss, honestly.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have more material to make steel from or make knives from. So yeah, it's something I'm playing with. I want to start playing with more. I got Blade Show, of course, like I just said, coming up. I will probably be at Dave's. I actually might have a thing in Minneapolis,
Oh, cool.
in September as well. And then I'm going to be at Maker Camp in the fall. And then I
wanna
might
go
be
to that.
following that with a class. Maker Camp's fun. It's
Looks
kind of
cool.
like Blade, in the way that like you just meeting all these people and connecting
Yeah,
with
yeah.
them, that and hanging out. And you can take stuff though. It's not really like a sales place. It's a place where people are going to like learn how to
Yeah.
like weld for the first time, or
Yeah.
and just like exposing them to all these different crafts. And then I might teach a class in Pennsylvania after that. And then I think that'll probably be it for the school for the year. I might do something in November, but I'm not quite sure yet.
Cool.
But
That sounds like a good year, man.
yeah,
But,
last year was way busier, and so this is
Yeah.
way dialed back. This is like half of what I did last year.
That's good. It's man,
Last
the
year was too
traveling,
much.
yeah, the traveling merchant thing can be tough.
For sure.
Definitely gets tiring.
Yeah.
But it's also fun. Like I'm so happy to have a job where I get to travel, you know.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm very thankful for it. And just like the different people you connect with and learn from. I think
Yeah.
if you have eyes to see, there's always something to learn from super experienced makers to brand new people.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite things about teaching is when you learn something kind of mind blowing from someone who's never done it before.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I like my background is working in restaurants, and now I'm like this Damascus and chef's knife guy,
Yeah.
right? And like I think because we all come from different backgrounds and have our own perspective on the world, like we all have something interesting to contribute. And we all have like creative problem solving is one of the most, I think, underrated or it's one of the more highly valued skills, but it's still completely, I feel like it's completely underrated.
I agree.
And because of our different backgrounds, we all have our own way of creative problem solving.
Yeah.
Right? Like somebody could propose to us the same problem. They're like, you two, this is the problem. Now solve it. And give us the exact same materials. And we go,
Yeah.
we would probably go completely different directions, but we would come up with solutions and
Yeah.
both would work and be great.
Well, that's like the rules versus guidelines thing you were talking about, you know. There's some flexibility to it all, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah. Sick. Well, where can people find you?
Instagram. Now it's just my name, Jayden Simisky. I think it's all connected, no dots or underscores or anything.
Yeah, it's all
if you look up the Slacksmith, it'll still come up too. Facebook, I don't use it that much, but I'm on there as well. My website is theslacksmith.com. My YouTube channel is The Slacksmith. I'm hoping to put more effort into YouTube soon here because,
cool.
You know, as we all know, the Instagram battle has become an uphill one. Yeah. But and I really love video making as an art form too, so I'm excited about that.
Killer.
But what would you say?
I just said killer. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, video making is a ton of fun, and also music production. Like I love making music, and producing music for my own videos is something that I've really enjoyed doing in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're ever in Colorado, anybody, you know, whether it's you, Mareko, or anybody that's listening, I'm around. Send me a message. I love having people come by my shop. I teach classes. I love showing people the mountains around here and you know the various bits of nature that I love. And I'll be at Blade Show, Table 9K. Come hang out.
If I come to Boulder, I feel like I gotta go to Pasta J's.
You got to. It's actually really good food too. I love that place.
Oh,
but
excellent.
yeah, seriously, I mean the offer is there, man. If you're ever in Boulder, let me know. I ain't got much,
love to come back
but what I got, it's yours.
Hell yeah, I'm the same way. I got a small shop, but I can make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need a lot. And there's enough friends around here that have incredible blacksmithing shops that I can go hang out with if I need to. But yeah, that's where I can be found.
Sweet. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, man.
I appreciate you joining us for the conversation. Real quick, again, all the sponsors, again, appreciate all of the people on Patreon for your support to help make these conversations a reality. This month's super sponsors are Dan Hubbs. He's on Instagram and Facebook at 66 Mountain Knives. Lawrence Lake is Maritime Knife Supply on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Gabe Fletcher is at Anchorage Brewing as well as at Anchorage Forge. Josh Weston is Josh A. Weston as well as Dragon Forge EXP on Instagram. And Russell Tinsley is Can't Make Knives on Instagram as well as Oozle Finch. That's spelled OOZLE Finch Beers, and at Nost Brewing Project. I always want to spell Oozle, Oozle, which is spelled Oozle. I'm like, what am I? That's not. I gotta say the letters. That's how you spell things. Anyways, thank you everybody. Thank you, Jayden, for your time, man. I had a great time chatting with you and getting to know you, and I look forward to continuing to follow your journey because you do have a very creative and interesting mind, and it's cool to see you bring those ideas into the world to inspire other creative people to figure out other wild ways to do stuff. And
thank you.
I appreciate you for that, and I look forward to seeing you at least at Blade, if not also at Dave's.
Yeah, man. Likewise on all accounts. And thank you so much for not only having me on, but just doing this and facilitating a place for people to talk about these kind of more esoteric, weird things about being an artist and a knife maker and all that. And just a human, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody.